Chapter 1107. He. To move unhindered. Hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's words, the Chuanjian members could not help but laugh. Even Dugu Jiuqiang scratched his head awkwardly. This was because Nine Swords Dugu knew that Wang Yu had a special relationship with the big boss behind Unhindered the World. Leaving aside the question of whether Unhindered the World, who only cared about money, would get involved in this matter, even if they did, it was obvious who they were on the same side as. In reality, no matter how many players there were, they were still like a sheet of loose sand without an organization. In a similar situation, when those small groups heard of Yu Huiqing's name, they would probably go offline and hide. Therefore, Dugu Jiuqiang was most afraid of those big, organized, and disciplined guilds. To move unhindered was the only big guild left in Celestial Dragon City. Moreover, they were separated by their relationship with Wang Yu. As for the other people in Celestial Dragon City, it was even easier to deal with them. During the apocalypse, they were one of the top big guilds in the country. Without the protection of the city walls of the guild encampment, the motley crew from the World Alliance would not be able to cause much trouble. Currently, the apocalypse belonged to the Celestial Dragon City faction. From a certain point of view, they were on the same side as the world of Windcloud. It was relatively easy to break into the city from the inside. Moreover, the World Alliance and the Apocalypse had already formed a grudge. If the Apocalypse did not help Chuanjian, they would not be able to survive in Celestial Dragon City. However, if they helped Chuanjian, not only would they be able to protect themselves, but Dugu Jiuqiang would also be able to become the Castellan as he wished. Rather than saying that Dugu Jiuqiang and the others were fighting for Chuanjian, it would be better to say that they were fighting for themselves. Working for others and working for themselves were two completely different concepts. Dugu Jiuqiang also knew that they were in an awkward position. Just as he was about to express his willingness to cooperate with Chuanjian, he suddenly received a private message from Wang Yu. Seeing Wang Yu's message, Dugu Jiuqiang frowned. He took out his spear and stabbed Mingdu, who was beside Wuji. Everyone was originally working together to fool Dugu Jiuqiang, but no one expected Dugu Jiuqiang to suddenly attack. Dugu Jiuqiang was considered an expert. His equipment was of the highest quality, and Punishment Paladin was one of the classes with the strongest single damage. How could a fragile mage like Mingdu withstand such a blow? He was instantly stabbed into white light by Dugu Jiuqiang? Damn. Lone dog follows heart, what do you mean by this? Seeing that Mingdu had been killed, the Chuanjian people were greatly alarmed. One by one, they unsheathed their weapons and prepared to counterattack. However, the solitary Nine Spear had already charged all the way back to his own formation. Turning his head, he sneered. It's not like I haven't seen you filthy people before. Do you think you can deceive me? Now that your firepower is gone, I have tens of thousands of people under me. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and scram. Otherwise, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground. As he spoke, Dugu Jiuqiang waved his hand, and his subordinates all got into position. They seemed to have the intention of annihilating Chuanjian at the slightest disagreement. As the saying went, a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. Now that World Alliance's encampment had been breached, they no longer had the terrain advantage. No matter how strong Chuanjian was, they had no chance against a major guild like the Apocalypse. Seeing that Dugu Jiuqiang had turned his back on them, Chuanjian could only glare angrily at the Apocalypse. They flapped their cloaks and flew into the sky. At that time, a player named Bai Yunxing, who was standing beside Dugu Jiuqiang, looked at the Chuanjian members who had flown away unscathed and said, "Brother Gun, are we just going to let them go?" "Of course," Dugu Jiuqiang said. "Don't think that they have a small number of people, but they're not easy to deal with. Moreover, they can fly. Even if we can annihilate them, we'll lose many of our brothers. Defending the city is more important now, so these casualties are unnecessary." Defending the city? Bai Yunxing was shocked when he heard that. Brother Gun, are we really going to work with the whole wind cloud? You're wrong about that, Dugujioqiang said. I'm only doing this for Heavenly Dragon City. It has nothing to do with anyone. Let's go. These people must be going to get reinforcements now. We can still set up the city's defenses if we go back now. Okay. Bai Yunxing nodded and commanded the Apocalypse players to retreat from the World Alliance's base. After the Apocalypse players had left, Wang Yu and the others flew back. At that moment Mingdu, who had disappeared in a flash of white light, appeared not far away and said, F***ck, old cow, what's going on? Wang Yu chuckled and said, It's nothing. I just beat them at their own game. Beat them at their own game? Everyone was slightly stunned when they heard that. Then, they said in shock, Could it be that there's a spy beside Dugujioqiang? That's right. Wang Yu nodded and said, Not only is there a spy, but the spy is also a core member. How do you know? Everyone asked curiously. Wang Yu said plainly, Because there aren't many people who know that I have the Heavenly Dragon City's Castellan seal, but that includes the whole of Windcloud. When Wang Yu and Dugujioqiang worked together to assassinate Long Outyen, only Dugujioqiang and a few of his trusted subordinates knew about it. Moreover, during the assassination, Wang Yu specially changed his appearance in the Wizard Academy to prevent Long Outyen from recognizing him. Even if the Apocalypse players were present, no one would be able to see Wang Yu's true appearance. However, the whole of Windcloud knew Wang Yu's identity as soon as Long Outyen died. It was obvious that there were people from the whole of Windcloud among Dugujioqiang's trusted subordinates. After all, there were things like private messages in the game, so it was much more convenient to engage in espionage than in reality. Speaking of which, will people recognize you from your abnormal skills? Wuji asked after thinking for a while. There was no other player with Wang Yu's skills in the game. When he was fighting against Long Outyen, his performance was probably even more abnormal. It wouldn't be surprising if he was recognized. I used to think so too. Wang Yu shook his head and said, But after seeing the whole of Windcloud, I don't think so anymore. Why? Everyone was puzzled again. Wang Yu said plainly, If you had seen my skills with your own eyes, would you dare to provoke me again and again? F***ck. Everyone broke down. Don't blow your own trumpet. Although what you said is the truth, we're not used to it at all. As this was a battle between two main cities, the preparation time before the battle was not as long as when they attacked Yuhuiqing. This time, it was only 30 minutes. When Dugujioqiang arrived at the outskirts of Heavenly Dragon City, the whole of Windcloud was leading his subordinates to set up the defensive equipment on the city wall. Seeing the black mass of players running towards them, the mercenaries turned pale with fright. However, the whole of Windcloud calmly shouted from the top of the wall, Are you here to defend the city or to attack it? Chapter 1108. Is that so? The world of Windcloud's face was filled with suspicion, but his tone did not sound surprised. He pondered for a moment and said, Aren't you Chuanjin's friends? Bulsh *t. Dugujioqiang said angrily, Sun Zitsai and those bastards are friends. We fought you because Chuanjin's people spread rumors that your world alliance wants to deal with us. Who knew that those bastards would suddenly do this? If you don't let us in, we'll go offline and sleep. Damn it. Hearing Dugujioqiang's words, the world of Windcloud gritted his teeth and cursed, Those scoundrels. After fighting with Chuanjin for a few rounds, the world of Windcloud had a certain understanding of Chuanjin's style. Sowing discord was indeed Chuanjin's style. Although the world of Windcloud had the same idea, they had yet to make a move. Of course, Windy World wasn't a soft-hearted person. Under normal circumstances, he definitely wouldn't believe Dugujioqiang's side of the story just because he had once tried to kill him. However, the world of Windcloud did indeed have spies in the World Alliance. The world of Windcloud had heard about the sudden fallout between Dugujioqiang and Chuanjin and their decision to return to defend the city. Secondly, The strength displayed by Chuanzhen's team was truly valiant. Moreover, they had successfully defended Yu Huiqing against so many people. Disregarding everything else, they were definitely experienced in city battles. Against such an opponent, the 10,000 men under Dugu Jiuqiang were definitely a force to be reckoned with. At this moment, the world of Windcloud was still quite afraid that Dugu Jiuqiang would turn around and leave. Therefore, although he was not confident, he immediately panicked when he heard that Dugu Jiuqiang was going to bring his men offline and sleep. He quickly asked Mouse, "Damn it, this kid wants to leave. Should we open the door and let them in?" Mouse waved his hand and said, "No. This kid is not trustworthy." Then what if he really leaves? The world of Windcloud was conflicted. "Watch me," Mouse said indifferently, then walked to the edge of the city wall and shouted, "Ha ha, Brother Spear, I'm Mouse, do you still recognize me?" "Yes. I didn't expect you to fall to such a state." Dugu Jiuqiang glanced at Rat and said with disdain. There were also professional teams in the apocalypse, so naturally, they weren't unfamiliar with Mouse. When Mouse had retired, Dugu Jiuqiang had even tried to recruit these fellows to be their training partners, but they were flatly rejected. Who would have thought that these fellows would become full-time nannies? It was truly despicable. Mouse said with a smile. "Our boss is young and impetuous, don't take it to heart, I'll go open the door for you." With that, Rat was about to go down the wall and open the door himself. F***ck Mouse. What's the difference between what you just said and what I just said? Seeing that Mouse was about to open the door to welcome his guest, Windy the World became anxious. He glared at Mouse from behind and sent him a private message. Rat replied faintly, "It's not the same. You see, if he is really sincere, he will stop me from opening the door." "Really?" Windy the World had a doubtful expression. "Don't." As expected, seeing that Mouse was about to go down the wall, Dugu Jiuqiang quickly raised his hand to stop Mouse and said, "Mouse, we've known each other for a while, so I don't want to say anything unpleasant to you. We can enter the city, and defending it is our duty. However, I also know that Chuanzhen's target is your boss. You know my temper, I, Dugu Jiuqiang, will never let my brothers work for someone else for nothing." Mouse raised his eyebrows at the shocked Windy the World. He pretended to be unhappy and stopped in his tracks. Then, he looked down at the city and said, "Brother Spear, do you have any other requests?" Dugu Jiuqiang stretched out 2 fingers and said indifferently, "Not many. Just 2. Mouse hesitated for a while and said, "As long as you're willing to defend the city, as long as our boss can do it, we will do our best. It's very simple." Dugu 9 Spears said, "First, whether it's today or in the future, the World Alliance cannot take today's attack to heart." "Brother Spear, what are you talking about?" Mouse laughed and said, "Since we're working together, we're brothers. We'll definitely let bygones be bygones." Mouse was not surprised by Dugu Jiuqiang's request. After all, if the world of Windcloud successfully defended the city, they would definitely gain the recognition of all the players in Heavenly Dragon City. At that time, the World Alliance would definitely be powerful. Even a big guild like the post-apocalyptic era would be worried about them. Dugu Jiuqiang's request was obviously showing weakness to the World Alliance. "What's the other request?" Mouse asked. "Haha." Dugu Jiuqiang laughed and said, "If the city is successfully defended, your boss's position as the city lord will be secured. We don't have any other requests in the post-apocalyptic era other than a city district. This isn't too much, right?" "City district." Mouse frowned and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Which city district?" "The Central Administrative District." Dugu Jiuqiang blurted out, F***ck. You're asking for too much." Hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's second request, the world of Windcloud could no longer sit still. He leaned on the wall and raised his objection. Who didn't know that the lifeline of a main city was the administrative district? Whether it was the shops, markets, or administrative rights, they were all second only to the city lord. The first request was fine. In the game, no one would get to know each other if they didn't fight. However, when it came to actual benefits, the world of Windcloud was not willing to compromise. "It's fine if you don't want to." Dugujiuqiang snapped his fingers and said, "Brothers, time to go offline and sleep." "No, no, no," Mouse hurriedly shouted. "Brother Spear, why do you have to be so ruthless?" Dugujiuqiang waved his hand and said, "Cut the crap. If you don't want to give us, we'll go offline." As he spoke, Dugujiuqiang found a comfortable position and looked like he was going offline. Seeing this, Mouse anxiously said, all right, I promise you. Isn't it just the Central Administrative District? Open the door and let the brothers of the world of Windcloud in." As he spoke, Mouse frantically gestured to the world of Windcloud. "Are you crazy?" The world of Windcloud angrily shouted. "They want the Central Administrative District." "I know." Mouse smiled. "You're still smiling? Dugujiuqiang and his group are here to snatch territory. The Administrative District should be left for the World Alliance. How can we give it to him?" The world of Windcloud said unhappily. "You're right." Mouse chuckled and whispered, "Do you still think that he's not trustworthy?" Hearing Mouse's words, the world of Windcloud was slightly stunned. He immediately understood Mouse's meaning. That's right. The reason why the world of Windcloud was in a dilemma was because he still didn't trust Dugujiuqiang and his group. But now, the world of Windcloud was certain that Dugujiuqiang was sincere in defending the city. Chapter 1109. No matter who it was, they would judge others by their own standards to a certain extent. For example, a simple and foolish person would believe that there were no thieves in this world. People like Mouse and Windcloud World would instinctively believe that there were no fools in this world who would selflessly contribute without asking for anything in return. Therefore, when Wuji knew that Wang Yu wanted Dugujiuqiang to make use of his own scheme to enter Heavenly Dragon City, he immediately sent a message to Dugujiuqiang, asking Dugujiuqiang to make as many requests as possible. If Dugujiuqiang had a selfless attitude, he would definitely be shot to death at the foot of the wall. However, Dugujiuqiang's insatiable greed immediately dispelled Mouse's doubts. He thought that Dugujiuqiang was here to take advantage of the situation to defend the city. However, even though he knew that Dugujiuqiang was really here to defend the city, Windcloud World was still extremely displeased. Damn it, even if that's the case, this grandson is too black-hearted. He directly asked for the position of Deputy City Lord. It was true that Windcloud World was rich, but he was not a generous person. Although giving up the administrative district was nothing compared to losing the entire main city, Windcloud World was still very conflicted when Dugujiuqiang asked for the most important prime location in the main city. Mouse laughed. With the current situation, it's not too much to ask for the position of Deputy City Lord. Moreover, isn't it up to you to decide whether to give it to him or not? Hearing Mouse's words, Windcloud World immediately revealed a treacherous smile. Damn it, if the defense of the city failed, Heavenly Dragon City would belong to Yu Huiqing. However, if they succeeded, it would be Windcloud World who had the final say. There were no outsiders here. Even if Windcloud World flatly denied the conditions, Heavenly Dragon City would probably not have the ability to resist at the end of the world. Thinking of this, Windcloud World smiled and ordered, "Open the gates and let Boss Dugu enter the city." Following Windy World's command, the gates of Celestial Dragon City slowly opened. Dugu Nine Spears led his subordinates into the city in a grandiose manner. Everyone from the apocalypse entered the city, and the gates of Heavenly Dragon City were closed once again. At that time, Chuanzhen's group also walked leisurely towards the city walls, as though they were taking a stroll. The players on the city walls were dumbfounded when they saw only a handful of Chuanzhen's members. Apart from nation wars, A city war was the largest PvP battle in the game. Even if you didn't bring an army to the city, it would at least be on a larger scale than a guild war. But now, there were tens of thousands of people guarding the city walls, while the other party had less than 10 people. This was no longer a matter of victory or defeat. This was clearly disrespect for the opponent. It was as if everyone was having a fight at the school gate. One side brought a machete and a big brick, and called out all their aunts and aunts, while the other side only brought a nail clipper. As this person's opponent, everyone's mood at this moment could be imagined. This dog's behavior was simply unworthy of such a solemn occasion. Are you Huicheng's people not here yet? Windy World looked at his tens of thousands of comrades behind him, then looked at the sloppy Chuanjian's group below the city walls, and asked with a frown. Yu Huicheng was not far from here. If he gathered his forces and took the airship, they should be arriving soon. Hearing Windy World's doubt, Wuji asked, Yu Huicheng's people? Why bother them at this late hour? Don't wait, they won't come. Windy World did not expect these fellows to really be here to attack the city. Hearing this, he immediately laughed. Oh? Yu Huicheng's people aren't here? Haha, so what? Do you think you can attack the city with just a few people? You think it's too few? Wuji said with a smile. These people are more than enough to deal with a motley crew like you. I advise you to quickly open the gates and surrender, or else everyone will lose levels and EXP. Bulsh *T. Shoot this son of AB *TCH to death. Wuji was definitely the type of person who deserved to be beaten up. Once he opened his mouth, anyone could not help but slap him. With such a talent, being a cleric was better than being a tank. The whole of Windcloud had just been beaten up by the Quanzhen sect and was currently in a fit of anger. At this moment, he could not be bothered to argue with Wuji. Without waiting for Wuji to finish speaking, the whole of Windcloud immediately gave his subordinates an order. The mercenaries of World Alliance received the order, knocked their arrows, gathered their spells, and aimed at the Chuanjian players below the city walls. At the same time, Dugujioqiang also drew his weapon and pointed it at the World Alliance players on the city walls. Brothers, go! He then added in the guild channel, kill the World Alliance players. After the players of World Alliance received the order, a series of question marks appeared on their heads. Although they did not know what Dugujioqiang was planning, times were different now. They had to carry out their boss's orders. Kill. Therefore, the players of World Alliance let out a deafening roar, raised their weapons, and charged forward. Windy World thought that the players of World Alliance were here to snatch their kills. He turned around and said loudly, Boss Dugu, it's just these few people. There's no need to trouble your brothers. At this moment, rays of cold light flashed past. The players of World Alliance pounced forward, ramming, slashing, casting spells, and shooting arrows at the World Alliance players. The PvP skills of the World Alliance mercenaries were indeed better than ordinary players. However, the World Alliance was a huge guild, and it was not easy to enter it. Moreover, the players of World Alliance were currently firing at Chuanjian's men below the city walls. No one was guarding against the enemies behind them. Moreover, the players of World Alliance outnumbered the World Alliance players by 10 times. In just a single round, the World Alliance mercenaries were either slashed to death, beaten to critical health, or knocked down the city walls. Looking at this scene, the pitiful Windy World was dumbfounded. He had never expected Dugujioqiang to bring his subordinates to attack at this time. He was still thinking of denying the matter regarding the administrative district after the harvest was over and putting Dugujioqiang on his side. He did not expect Dugujioqiang to be even more ruthless and kill him directly. The feeling of being deceived was not a good one. The more Windy World harbored evil intentions towards others, the more he could not accept the fact that he had been deceived. When Windy World finally reacted, he immediately exploded. Flustered and exasperated, he pointed at Dugujioqiang and scolded, "Dog 9 spears! Are you crazy? Do you know what you're doing? Do you still want to stay in Sky Dragon City? Facing Windy World's scolding, Dugu Jiuqiang remained silent with a cold expression. He lowered his head and charged towards Windy World. He raised his spear and used a level 40 skill, Wind Assault Stab. Chapter 11:10. Clang! Just as Dugu Jiuqiang's head was about to be pierced through by Heavenly Windcloud's spear, a huge shield rushed over and blocked between the two of them. As a punishment paladin, Dugu Jiuqiang's attack power was extremely high. As for a shield warrior, as a defensive tank class, his judgment was also extremely high. Both of them were strength-type players, so they played head-on. Although their techniques weren't high, it was still quite shocking when they collided. Dugu Jiuqiang's spear collided with the shield, and after an ear-piercing sound, Dugu Jiuqiang was forced to take a few steps back before he could stabilize himself. Humph! When Dugu Jiuqiang regained his senses and saw the person who blocked him, he sneered. I was wondering who it was. So it's Tiger. As expected of a former professional expert. When he said the words, professional expert, Dugu Jiuqiang deliberately emphasized his tone. It was easy to learn bad things. After fighting against the Chuanjian sect for so many years, in addition to learning the shamelessness of the Chuanjian sect, the Dugu Nine spear was also quite accomplished in harming people. This sentence seemed to be flattering Tiger's strength, but in reality it was mocking Tiger, a professional expert, for being a nanny to wipe someone's ass. His words were quite vicious. Tiger could naturally hear the sarcasm in Dugu Jiuqiang's words. He smiled awkwardly and smashed the shield on the ground. Brother Spear, why are you doing this? If we join forces, we might not be Chuanjian's match. It had to be said that the strength that Chuanjian had displayed was enough to make an expert like Tiger fearful. In this situation, even if he joined forces with Dugu Jiuqiang, he wouldn't dare to say that he could completely defeat Chuanjian. It couldn't be helped. After getting close to Chuanjian, Tiger finally understood what it meant to be impossible to defend against. Humph! Dugu Jiuqiang looked at Tigris with disdain and said, I'm different from you 12 constellations. My goal is Heavenly Dragon City, not to wipe people's ass for the rest of my life. Dugu Jiuqiang wasn't the type of person who would willingly submit to others. Dugu Jiuqiang didn't care about a small, penniless guild like World of Upheaval at all. However, not only had World of Upheaval's core members been poached, but World of Upheaval had even tried to recruit Heavenly Dragon City's city lord. How could Dugu Jiuqiang tolerate this? Moreover, given the current situation, as long as the World Alliance failed to defend the city, Dugu Jiuqiang would have the opportunity to become the city governor. On one side was the castellan, and on the other side was the district mayor. Although both seemed like empty promises, Dugu Jiuqiang was still willing to choose the one with the bigger chips. After all, as a person, Dugu Jiuqiang was more willing to believe in Wang Yu. Logically, Dugu Jiuqiang would never help the whole of Windcloud. You! After being ridiculed by Dugu Jiuqiang once again, Tiger's face darkened. He couldn't help but say angrily, if you want to be the city governor, you need to have the ability. Although I've retired, I'm not someone who can be bullied by anyone. I admit that. Dugu Jiuqiang kept his spear and said indifferently, however, I have so many subordinates. Why should I fight you one-on-one? Following which, Dugu Jiuqiang pointed at Tiger and the whole of Windcloud and ordered, kill them. The World Alliance's mercenaries were caught off guard and suffered a great loss. Moreover, they didn't have an advantage in terms of quantity and quality. In just a few minutes, they were beaten to the point where they could only defend themselves. Even if these people were really World of Windcloud's trusted subordinates, they wouldn't be of much use at this moment, let alone the fact that they were only paid to do their jobs. After taking control of the mercenaries, everyone heard Dugu Jiuqiang's order and swarmed over. When the members of the 12 Stars saw the players rushing towards the whole of Windcloud, they tore a hole in the formation of the players and protected the whole of Windcloud. Very soon, the whole of Windcloud's party was forced to the side of the city wall by the tens of thousands of players. Of course, there were times when numbers didn't necessarily mean an absolute advantage. For example, on the city wall, if the players on both sides had similar combat skills and equipment quality, 10,000 players would have the absolute advantage against 1,000 mercenaries. A few consecutive charges would be enough to break through the enemy's line of defense. However, the top of the city wall wasn't spacious. With so many people stretching the line, they could barely hold their ground. If they wanted to surround the enemy, there wouldn't be any space for them to stand. It would already be good if a few hundred out of 10,000 people could reach the city wall. This was especially so when they were up against the top experts of the 12 stars. It was very easy for the whole of Windcloud to not be able to take down a few people from Chuanjin in the World Alliance's encampment. As expected, under the protection of the experts of the 12 stars, the whole of Windcloud stood at the side of the city wall and blocked the waves of attacks from the apocalypse. F***CK. Those guys are too hard to deal with. It's not going to be easy for us. Seeing this situation, Light Brother and the others were helpless. They asked Dugu, "Why don't we find professional players as well?" They had no choice. In this kind of terrain, it would be pointless if they couldn't reach their opponents no matter how many people stood. If they wanted to deal with these people, they had to find people who were on par with them to help. Dugu Jiuqiang bit his lips in a dilemma. Then, he stretched his head and looked at the bottom of the city wall with a pleading look. Professional players were all masters. Putting aside the fact that professional players were very familiar with each other, would they attack their old acquaintances of the 12 stars? At this time, everyone was sleeping soundly. How could they ask them to bully this group of retired dogs? Weren't they asking for a scolding? Instead of being rebuffed, it was better to ask for help from the few masters below. However, when the Chuanjin players saw this, they quickly turned their heads and ignored Dugu Jiuqiang. To place one's pride looked at the chaos at the top of the city wall and asked in confusion, "Are we really not going to help?" "It's not worth it," Wang Yu said calmly. "There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. If Dugu Jiuqiang wants the City Lord's seal, then do it himself. This is Sky Dragon City's matter. Why should we interfere?" Logically speaking, Wang Yu had promised to give Sky Dragon City's seal to Dugu Jiuqiang when he fought against Long Outyan. However, because Dugu Jiuqiang had placed all his hopes on Wang Yu, he was unwilling to help. In the end, Wang Yu killed Long Outyan alone. The two of them were not related, so Wang Yu was naturally unwilling to work for him for free. The current situation was basically the same as last time, but the difficulty was much lower. If over 10,000 people couldn't even take down a group of retired professional players, then whole Windcloud should be the City Lord. At the very least, he had the strength. Seeing that Chuanjin's people were determined not to help, Dugu Jiuqiang sighed and loudly ordered, "The other classes back off. Archers, gather here and fire." Hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's order, whole Windcloud's face turned green. Damn, this kind of shameless and brainless method was exactly what whole Windcloud had used to deal with Chuanjin. Chapter 11:11. Facts had proven that the less technical the method, the simpler and more effective it was. There were tens of thousands of players at the end of the world, and archers made up a large proportion of them. In the face of a long-range class like archers, the advantage of numbers was much greater than that of melee classes. No matter how strong the 12 stars were, they could not withstand the simultaneous attacks of so many people. Moreover, they were not like Chuanjin, who had the revival point as a base to fight to the death. After a few rounds of shooting, the tanks at the front were reduced to a sliver of HP. Seeing that the 12 stars could no longer withstand the attacks, Dugu Jiuqiang clenched his fists in excitement. In the City War of Rebirth, there were only two conditions for the defending side to fail. First, the City Lord had to be killed within the stipulated time. Second, the city lord had to surrender and hand over the seal within the stipulated time. Hence, once Windcloud World died, Skydragon City would fall. Windcloud World and his men were like cornered beasts, dying was only a matter of time. Of course, as the defender, Windcloud World knew his weakness better than anyone else. At this moment, Fengyu Tianxia saw that he was about to be shot to death by the arrows. He was already panicking like a frightened rabbit. What should I do? What should I do? Windcloud World anxiously looked down the city wall. If it wasn't for Chuanzhen's men standing at the foot of the wall and the fact that the city wall was too high, he would have jumped down in panic. Under such circumstances, Rat was helpless no matter how smart he was. He could only sigh, "What else can we do? As long as you don't die, we won't lose the city. But if you don't want to die now, you have to fly." Fly? Windcloud World's eyes lit up when he heard this. As they spoke, a few of the 12 stars were shot to death. Seeing that Windcloud World only had less than 5 people left, Dugu Jiuqiang said excitedly, "Everyone, let's work harder. Who can shoot that kid at the back? I'll reward him with 1,000 gold coins." 1,000 gold coins. Hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's words, the archers were excited. They turned their arrows and aimed at Windcloud World. In a split second, the rain of arrows that covered the sky converged into a single point and shot towards Windcloud World. At this moment, Windcloud World's few remaining subordinates stood in front of Windcloud World. The tank class of the 12 celestial bodies had been shot to death a moment ago. Archers were a physical class with a passive armor-piercing effect. Without the protection of a tank shield, how could they withstand so many arrows with just their own defense? What's more, the last of the 12 celestial forms were the squishy professions that dealt damage while hiding in the crotch. Countless arrows landed on everyone's bodies, creating a series of white lights. Just as Heavenly Windcloud was about to follow his subordinates, a white light flashed. Suddenly, a strange change occurred. In the blink of an eye, Windy World formed a strange hand seal and slammed it on the ground. A huge hexagram magic array lit up on the ground. At the same time, a dazzling light erupted from the magic array, and a huge black dragon drilled out of the magic array and stood in front of the world of Windcloud. Clang, 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 clang. Everyone's arrows had killed 4 experts in a row, and their power had been greatly reduced. At this moment, when the arrows hit the black dragon's scales, sparks flew and the sound of metal colliding could be heard. Creatures like giant dragons had always been of a high level. It was rare for ordinary players in the game to see them. The players who were most traumatized by giant dragons were those in the post-apocalyptic era. Back then, Dugu Jiuqiang had led a team to slay a dragon. The players of the post-apocalyptic era had personally witnessed Long Outyen massacring an entire city. They had also personally experienced being turned into dust by dragon breath. At this moment, giant dragons were definitely traumatized, especially the black dragon that looked like Long Outyen. Everyone present shuddered in fear. Seeing that Windy World had summoned a black dragon, the players of the post-apocalyptic era felt their legs turn to jelly. Their hair stood on end as they shouted, F***CK. It's Long Outyen. Everyone, run! Immediately, everyone fled in all directions, and the scene became chaotic. Those who had not seen Long Outyen's ferocity would not be able to understand the fear of the players of the post-apocalyptic era. Even Dugu Jiuqiang and a few core players were completely dumbfounded. F***CK, even Long Outyen was pulled out. These rich people always broke the rules of the game. It was truly despicable. Windy World also knew that his dragon was only around level 40. Although it looked mighty and domineering, its true strength was far from Long Outyen's. Naturally, he would not ask for trouble by chasing after people of the post-apocalyptic era. While the players were in chaos, Windy World jumped onto the dragon's back. He patted the dragon's head and said, "Take off, little black." The black dragon spread its wings and carried Windy the World into the sky. Giant dragons were not flying items like cloak. As pets, the flying speed of a giant dragon was not limited by the player's movement attribute and time. Moreover, Windy World was a dragon knight. With the riding skill of his class, his flying speed could be described with one word: fast. In the blink of an eye, Windy World rushed into the sky and flew out of everyone's sight. The player's attack range was far inferior to their vision range. They could not even see Windy World, let alone attack him. They could only watch as the dying man escaped. Uncle Nyo had never raised a giant dragon before, and he was not Taoist priest Zhen Jibing. He did not know how it felt to ride a giant dragon. However, looking down from the sky and seeing so many people below him but unable to do anything to him, the feeling should be quite comfortable. Without boasting, Windy World hovered in the sky. He felt that he could persevere until the end of the siege. Thinking of this, Windy World's face unconsciously revealed a proud smile. "Hey, why are you smiling like an idiot?" However, just as Windy World was in a good mood, a familiar voice suddenly rang in his ear. "Yee!" This sudden voice caused Windy World to jump up in fright. This was the sky. Why was there someone hiding in the sky? Therefore, Windy World subconsciously pulled the giant dragon's neck and turned his body around in an extremely unfamiliar manner. However, when Windy World saw the appearance of the player behind him, his heart skipped a beat and a chill ran down his spine. If it was not for the giant dragon's wide back, this brat would have fallen from the shock. Flight was not an extremely rare skill. There were many people who could fly in the game, but there was only one person who could fly as fast as a giant dragon, and that person was Wang Yu. Looking at Wang Yu's demonic face, Windy World was on the verge of tears. He pointed at Wang Yu and said in a trembling voice, "You? Why are you here?" Chapter 11-12. Me! Hearing that, Wang Yu smiled. She flapped the pure white wings behind her and said, "I flew up." Then Wang Yu said, "Why? Do you want me to do it, or do you want to go down yourself?" Looking at Wang Yu, who was in front of him, he knew that he was going to die anyway, so he might as well give it his all. Gritting his teeth, he slapped the head of the giant dragon he was riding and shouted, "F***CKU! Kill him!" Roar. The black dragon let out a roar, and with a shake of its claws, it charged towards Wang Yu. "Humph! Stubborn fool!" With a cold snort, Wang Yu leaped into the air and stepped on the dragon's head, dodging the attack. At the same time, he bent down and extended his hand. His movement was smooth as he grabbed the World of Wind Cloud's collar and forcefully pulled him down. Roar. Since its master was captured, the giant dragon was eager to protect its master. It twisted its huge body and turned around, opening its mouth to breathe. Wang Yu tossed the whole of the world into the air. Then, he steadied himself on the horse steed and fully activated his state. His left hand drew a circle while his right palm struck out at the black dragon. A huge flaming dragon flew out from Wang Yu's palm with an aura that could topple mountains and overturn the seas, blasting the black dragon. Dragon subduing mystery. Arrogant dragon's remorse. Wang Yu was also someone who had fought against giant dragons before, so he knew very well how terrifying these creatures were. Therefore, he went all out from the start. Not only did he activate the dragon's subduing palm, but he also activated his internal breath. With the double strengthening buff, Flame Dragon Break was directly strengthened into the dragon's subduing palm's ultimate ultimacy. Arrogant dragon's remorse. Dragon subduing palm, be it its name or its background story, was created to deal with dragons in the background story. Even a godlike existence like Dragon Emperor Dale's was defeated by this palm technique, let alone a black dragon that was not even as high as Wang Yu. Boom! With a loud bang, the heavenly wind cloud's black dragon was instantly devoured by the fire dragon. It turned into a ball of white light and flew towards the heavenly wind cloud. Wang Yu gently extended his hand and grabbed the world of wind cloud before spreading his wings and descending. Although Wang Yu did not have a pet, Wu Ji and Chun Xiang were both snake-rearing professionals. Therefore, Wang Yu knew that the world of Windcloud's black dragon had been beaten into a spirit state and could not be summoned again for a while. The world of Windcloud did not have a divine weapon like the Book of Sealing. As for the punishment for the death of a pet, only the world of Windcloud knew. However, judging from Heavenly Windcloud's expression, the death penalty for a pet should not be low. No one knew better than Windcloud World how strong his pet was. It was a powerful existence that had withstood a wave of 10,000 arrows, yet it was instantly killed by a single palm. Windcloud World was on the verge of collapsing. He muttered to himself, My dragon! My dragon! Plop! Wang Yu carried the world of Windcloud with one hand and landed lightly at the bottom of the city wall. He violently threw the world of Windcloud to the ground and gestured to Dugu Jiuqiang, who was on the wall. Dugu Jiuqiang nodded his head and led the core players down the city wall, arriving in front of Chuanjin's group. F***ck your mother! Seeing that Dugu Jiuqiang and the others had also come down from the city wall, the world of Windcloud flew into a rage. He jumped up and was about to fight to the death with Dugu Jiuqiang. Bao San and the others immediately rushed forward and pressed the world of Windcloud to the ground. Wu Ji grinned and said, Little Feng, you didn't expect this, right? This is the result of thinking yourself clever. What do you mean? The world of Windcloud revealed a confused expression. Humph. Wu Ji sneered and said, What do I mean? As he spoke, Wu Ji's gaze swept across the faces of the people behind Dugu Jiuqiang, and he pointed at them and said, It's all thanks to this brother that you're able to enter the city and survive. The world of Windcloud was shocked. He subconsciously looked behind Dugu Jiuqiang and said in a panic, I don't know what you're talking about. Seeing the world of Windcloud's reaction, Wang Yu, Wu Ji, and the others smiled knowingly. As expected, the world of Windcloud had spies, and the spies were among the 4 people behind Dugu Jiuqiang. The world of Windcloud was not stupid. He would not be tricked and expose himself. However, Wu Ji was good at psychological attack. Seeing that the world of Windcloud did not fall for it, he smiled and pulled Dugu Jiuqiang to Wang Yu's side. He pointed at the 4 people and said to Dugu Jiuqiang, He's a spy. Light Brother and the others were dumbfounded. Bai Yunxing, who was at the side, blurted out, No, you're talking nonsense. Humph. Hearing Bai Yunxing's words, the Chuanjin people narrowed their eyes and looked at Bai Yunxing with evil smiles. The world of Windcloud also held his forehead in despair. Wu Ji snapped his fingers and pointed at Bai Yunxing, saying to Dugu Jiuqiang, That's him. You do as you see fit. Dugu Jiuqiang stared at the speechless Bai Yunxing in disbelief. His face darkened as he said indifferently, Tomorrow morning, go to the HR department to complete the resignation procedures. Following that, Dugu Jiuqiang said to Light Brother and the others, Help him take off his equipment. Since the guild had reached this stage of the apocalypse, it had already become an enterprise. As a core player, all of Bai Yunxing's resources belonged to the guild. Since they wanted to fire him, they naturally had to take back all of his belongings. Bai Yunxing did not dare to refuse. Firstly, everyone had signed a contract. Secondly, there were tens of thousands of players in the world of Windcloud. If he dared to refuse, they would definitely kill him. The end of the world was a large organization with practical benefits, and it wasn't as united as the Chuanjin sect. There were many people in the guild who didn't like Bai Yunxing, and those who kicked him when he was down were enough to play with him until he died. At the same time, the players in the world of Windcloud received the news. Green Dragon Hall leader Bai Yunxing has been removed from the guild by President Dugu Jiuqiang. Seeing this news, the players in the world of Windcloud were in an uproar. Light Brother and the others were still confused. They asked Dugu Jiuqiang in confusion, Gun bro, what's wrong? Why was Bai kicked out? He's a traitor. Dugu Jiuqiang said indifferently. Based on what? There's no evidence. You can't just believe what an outsider says, especially when it's Juanjin. Everyone shouted when they heard that. How is there no evidence? Wuji smiled and pointed at Bai Yunxing. His reaction is the evidence. A normal person would not be able to react in time due to the inertia of their thinking when they were suddenly asked an irrelevant question without knowing what was going on. Only those who were in the know would be on their guard when Wuji was deliberately mystifying things. Thus, after Wuji had whetted everyone's appetite, he pointed at a few people and said that they were spies. The others were all dumbfounded, knowing that they did not understand what Wuji was saying. Bai Yunxing, who had his guard up against Wuji from the start, quickly rebutted. Chapter 11-13. Light Brother and the others weren't brainless to be core players of such a big guild like the Apocalypse. It was obvious, but the three of them were caught off guard and couldn't react in time. Now that Wuji reminded them, they immediately came to their senses. The three of them pointed at Bai Yunxing in shock and asked, "It's really you? Why did you become a traitor?" Bai Yunxing was calm. Since his identity was exposed, it was futile to deny it. He looked at Dugu Jiuqiang calmly and said, "We can't play games forever, I just wanted to—" Fine. Bai Yunxing was about to explain why he wanted to become a traitor, but Wuji rudely interrupted him. "You just wanted a better future, we know. I'm not Detective Conan, and the readers aren't interested in your explanation. Shut up." Bai Yunxing swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue after being rebuked by Wuji. Humans strive for greater heights, and water flows to the bottom. Everyone just wanted to have a better future. This was human nature. It was just a game, there was no need to get too involved. However, Bai Yunxing still had to give himself a high-sounding reason for his betrayal, which made Wuji look down on him. After rebuking Bai Yunxing, Wuji rubbed his nose and said to Dugu Jiuqiang, "Songxin, I've caught these two brothers, and we don't owe each other anything anymore. You can decide how to deal with these two." Dugu Jiuqiang had just experienced his brother's betrayal, so he was in a very bad mood. You couldn't really do anything to a person in the game, at most you could just strip them of their equipment. At this time, Bai Yunxing had already handed over all his equipment, only his level. "Kill them!" Dugu Jiuqiang took a deep breath, wiped his face with his hand, and calmly waved at Light Brother and the others. The three of them looked at Bai Yunxing and the world of Windcloud with complicated gazes, and quickly turned the two into white light. Pada! After the world of Windcloud died, the Castellan's seal fell to the ground. Wang Yu casually scooped it up and tossed it a couple of times in her hand. After weighing it for a while, she tossed it to Dugu Nine's spear. Dugu Jiuqiang caught the seal, and the frustration in his heart lessened a little. At the same time, system announcement. Under the leadership of Afterglow City's City Lord, Iron Bull, the players of Afterglow City have fought a bloody battle for 15 minutes and finally breached Heavenly Dragon City. They have killed the bandit leader, Unstable World, and obtained victory in the city war. From today onwards, Heavenly Dragon City will be under Afterglow City's control and will be placed in the neutral faction. Following that, there were various rewards for the players who participated in the battle. The rewards for attacking a city were naturally very generous, and the Chuanjian players were quite satisfied with it. However, Wuji had a face full of disdain. This system's choice of words is really low quality. What do you mean by bloody battle? I didn't even have to waste a single soldier to take down Sky Dragon City. Everyone heard this and sighed. Tisk tsk. Wuji really knows how to brag. Attacking a city was the largest battle that the players could control. Under normal circumstances, other than the system rewards, the defeated guild would have to pay compensation to redeem their Castellan's seal. After all, once they were defeated, they would become someone else's territory, and things like seals were useless to the victorious party. However, Wang Yu gave the seal to Dugu Jiuqiang, which reduced the amount of compensation. Of course, for Chuanjian, the more gold coins they had, the more burdensome it would be. With the current depreciation rate of gold coins, it was more uncomfortable than directly taking money out of these people's pockets. For a large-scale battle mission like a city battle, the participants would actually be rewarded. Even the Sky Dragon City players, as the defeated party, had worked hard even if they didn't make any contributions, so they more or less received a consolation prize. At this time, the Castellan's seal had not been redeemed, so it was a win-win situation for everyone. However, Dugu Jiuqiang's expression was still sullen. The Chuanjian players couldn't help but walk over and pat Dugu Jiuqiang's shoulder, saying with a smile, "No matter how united a guild is, there might be traitors. This is a matter of probability. Do you know that 1 out of 5 men is impotent? You just happen to be unlucky." These bastards were asking for a beating. Dugu Jiuqiang was already like this, and they were still making sarcastic remarks at the side. Get lost, get lost." Dugu Jiuqiang waved his hand to chase everyone away. "You're the ones who are impotent. This is the sadness of a defeated Castellan." The Chuanjian players curled their lips and said, "Yo yo yo. I didn't know that you, a man, could be so sentimental. We didn't ask you for money and in the end you've earned it. Don't be sad." "We didn't compensate," Dugu Jiuqiang said gloomily, "but our Sky Dragon City has now become Yu Huiqing's territory. When the players come online tomorrow, our apocalypse will be miserable." The Chuanjian players all turned to look at Wang Yu. Dugu Jiuqiang was right. Everyone played the game, and no one wanted to become someone else's subjects for no reason. When the other players came online tomorrow and asked about the reason for their defeat, they would be scolded to death in the apocalypse. Not only did they become traitors, but they also led everyone to surrender. This kind of behavior would be considered a national traitor in times of war. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Wang Yu helplessly spread his hands and said, "I can't do anything about it. Although I'm the Castellan, if they want to get rid of their subordinate status, they have to break through our Yu Huiqing again. Do you want our Yu Huiqing to become Sky Dragon City's subjects?" F***CK. Hearing Wang Yu's words, the Chuanjian players were stunned. Then, they decisively said, "Accept your fate, little nine. If you don't accept your fate, we'll kill you until you do." Dugu Jiuqiang was speechless. At this moment Wu Ji, who had been silent, suddenly thought and said, "Listen to your heart. Actually, being Yu Huiqing's subjects is your Sky Dragon City's gain." "What do you mean?" Dugu Jiuqiang sneered and crossed his arms as he looked at Wu Ji. "Think about it." Wu Ji asked Dugu Jiuqiang, "What faction are the players in your main city in now?" "This." Dugu Jiuqiang looked at his own faction and said, "Neutral faction." "That's it." Wu Ji asked again, "Do you still remember what the expansion pack for the game is?" "Nonsense, it's the Rise of the Dragons." Dugu Jiuqiang blurted out. "That's right." Wu Ji narrowed his eyes and said, "I think you know how the so-called dragon's bloodline came about." "This." Hearing Wu Ji's words, Dugu Jiuqiang's eyes lit up, and the annoyance on his face disappeared without a trace. Dugu Jiuqiang was a veteran player. Since he played the game, it was impossible for him not to know the game's new content. The only way for the players to obtain the inheritance of the dragon's bloodline now was to join the neutral faction. However, not everyone could join the neutral faction if they wanted to. As an affiliated city of Yu Huiqing, after Sky Dragon City was liberated, it naturally joined the neutral faction. In this case, Sky Dragon City being an affiliated main city of Yu Huiqing was the biggest reward for this city war. As the saying went, the strongest weapon was a patch. Chapter 11-14. Usually, Wang Yu's work and rest schedule was very regular. Today, when he was about to go to sleep, he got up from his bed and tossed and turned for half the night. Even if he was a martial artist, it was inevitable that he would be tired. After the city battle, Dugu Jiuqiang led everyone away. Wang Yu let out a long sigh of relief and went offline with the rest of Chuanzhen. When the news of Heavenly Dragon City being conquered by less than 10 people from Chuanzhen spread throughout the game, it was already the afternoon of the next day. Looking at the news on the forum, all the guild leaders were restless, especially when they heard that Whole of Windcloud was the second castellan. The guild leaders who had been eyeing the main city seal saw that Whole of Windcloud had been destroyed before he could even warm his seat. One could imagine how they felt. After thinking about it, everyone decided to put off their dream of becoming castellans for now. Damn it, they were able to conquer a city with less than 10 people. If they were to bring players from 2 main cities, who could win? Rather than working for someone else, it was better to stay put and avoid being the first to stand out. In the office of 10,000 Miles Yellow Sand, the third largest guild in the country, the vice guild leader 10,000 Miles Wild Wind looked at the news he had just received and said to the guild leader, Yellow Sand covers the sun, who was beside him, with a hint of schadenfreude in his voice. Didn't I say it before? The Whole of Windcloud is just a nobody, yet he dares to become the city lord. Look, he's been targeted by the Quanzhen sect. If it were us, those bastards from the Quanzhen sect would have to reconsider their own abilities. You're thinking too much. Yellow Sand laughed. Whole of Windcloud is not a nobody. Oh? He's also an expert? 1,000 Miles Fierce Wind asked. Expert? He's not one, but you should have heard of World Dominator. Yellow Sand asked. World Dominator? Hearing this ID, 1,000 Miles Fierce Wind was slightly stunned. He thought for a moment and said, Isn't he the #1 tycoon who said, Don't use your annual salary to challenge my pocket money? That's right, it's him. Yellow Sand said, I heard that the 12 stars worked under him. So what? 10,000 Miles Gale said disdainfully, No matter how much money they have and how many experts they have working for them, they're still just a small, unknown guild. It's not surprising that they were taken down by a small group like Chuanzhen. After all, the most important resource in the game are the players. How do you know that World of Winds and Clouds doesn't have anyone? Don't forget that World of Winds and Clouds is still guarding Heavenly Dragon City. Doomsday? The expression on Wanli Huangsha's face froze. After a long while, he muttered, Could it be that the apocalypse is also involved? The enmity between World's End and the Quanzhen sect was not a secret in the eyes of these veteran players. The Quanzhen sect had attacked Heavenly Dragon City, so it was only logical that World's End would give World of Windcloud some face. If one were to say that World of Windcloud wasn't a big guild, everyone would admit it. However, if anyone were to say that World of Windcloud wasn't a big guild, they would be slapping themselves in the face. World Apocalypse was one of the biggest guilds in the country, with tens of thousands of players under their command. Even so many people couldn't resist Chuanzhen's group. Just how terrifying were they? They're involved. Yellow Sand Covers the Sun nodded and said, But it's not what you think. The Apocalypse is helping the Chuanzhen sect this time. What? Did I hear that right? 10,000 Miles Fierce Gale was surprised for a moment. Then, he muttered, No wonder, no wonder. I thought the Quanzhen sect was very scary. It turns out that they have the help of people from the Apocalypse. But why would people from the Apocalypse help the Quanzhen sect? 10,000 Miles Gale was puzzled. AI. Yellow Sand Covers the Sun shook his head and sighed. This is the scariest part of the Chuanzhen sect. No matter how strong a fortress was, it was still afraid of being destroyed from the inside. This was something everyone knew. If Chuanzhen had tricked the players of Sky Dragon City into betraying them, then it would have been fine. After all, normal players didn't have any faction to rely on. Under the pressure of Sky Dragon City's major guilds, they didn't have any sense of collective honor. It was reasonable for someone to give them some benefits. However, at the end of the world, there were definitely those who benefited from it. Heavenly Dragon City was at the top of the food chain, and it was also the sworn enemy of the Quanzhen sect. The Quan Zhen sect actually fooled the entire world into fighting on their side. It could be seen how terrifying their ability to mislead people and sow discord was. Thinking about this, Yellow Sand couldn't help but think back to his days in the Three Fiends village. Although there were some internal conflicts in the Three Fiends village, they didn't have to fight each other as a whole. However, because they had offended Chuanzhen, the conflict suddenly broke out. After a series of chaotic battles, they were unable to recover, and in the end they were dismembered. As expected, the scariest thing was the human heart. Thinking about Yellow Sand's reputation in Wind City, Yellow Sand bitterly smiled and shook his head. Regarding the matter of being a city lord, let's take it slow. No way, boss. When can we become a city lord? 1,000 Miles Gale asked in shock. Only by following the will of the people can we be unassailable. Yellow Sand bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. It was as if he was a politician, causing 1,000 Miles Gale to look at him with disdain. Yellow Sand wasn't the only one. When the other major guilds heard that Chuanzhen's greatest helper was an old rival of Chuanzhen, they also realized that Chuanzhen's current position couldn't be replicated. If a guild wanted to grow, it needed to occupy the best resources. Oppressing other players was unavoidable. At that time, with a wave of their arms, they could drown the guild in the sea of people's war. If a guild couldn't grow, it wouldn't have the strength to deter other guilds. If it couldn't deter other guilds, how could it become a city lord? Bulsh *T. Even Dugu Jiuqiang was willing to betray them and help Chuanzhen take over the city. What else was impossible? From this, it could be seen that what everyone lacked wasn't a seal or an opportunity, but a person who could intimidate the world. As for that person, it was naturally the student Wang Yu that all of Yu Huiqing's guilds wholeheartedly accepted. However, the reason why all of Yu Huiqing's players respected Wang Yu from the bottom of their hearts, other than his unfathomable strength, his unique charisma was also indispensable. At the very least, Wang Yu rarely took the initiative to bully the weak. On the contrary, he was very willing to help others. Even the famous scum of Chuanzhen, after Wang Yu joined them, became much more restrained. He didn't dare to speak about other main cities, but in Yu Huiqing, Chuanzhen's reputation was fundamentally different from before. It couldn't be helped. The game world of Rebirth was very big. Chuanzhen only had a few people. Even if they risked their lives to plunder resources, they couldn't compare to those major guilds that easily had tens of thousands of people. At this moment, Wang Yu probably didn't know that he had once again made a name for himself by teaching Whole of Windcloud a lesson. Chapter 11-15. The following days were relatively peaceful. Every day, Wang Yu would happily fight dungeons with everyone. Then, he would run around to find bosses to farm equipment. His days were quite happy. Peaceful days always passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. At this time, Wang Yu had risen from level 55 to level 59. Chuanzhen's members had also risen from level 50 to level 55. Since level 50, the experience required for players to level up had increased again. It was an astronomical figure. With everyone's current experience in dungeons, being able to level up once a week was already considered very fast. One had to know that compared to other main city players, Yu Huiqing had a lot of advantages. However, because of the difficulty of leveling up and the big threshold of the Awakening quest, there were still many people who were stuck at level 50. Nowadays, the highest level of the game players was only around level 52. These were the experts who had the ability to complete the Awakening quest. Everyone, let's go for a drink or two. Sunset Mountains. Chuanzhen finished the last level 50 dungeon and was teleported to the entrance of the dungeon. Wuji habitually said his catchphrase, "Not going, get lost." The others responded in unison as usual. Boring. Wuji curled his lips and asked, "Then where are you going to mingle? Bring me along." Every time he drank alone, Wuji also wanted to change the way he played. Exquisite Dream pulled Yang Na and said, "Let's go shopping at the trade street. I heard that there's a new tailor shop there that can make clothes. Do you want to go?" "I'm not interested." Wuji shook his head. For things like clothes, if it was a special item dropped by a boss, it seemed to have some special effect. However, the clothes sold in the shop and made by players had no special effects other than looking good. Wuji was already as beautiful as a flower. Of course, he did not need to spend money on dressing up. Besides, there was no reason to let a woman pay for shopping with him. No matter how shameless Wuji was, he would not do such a thing. The best decision was not to go. "I'm going to the auction to see if there are any good equipment. Do you want to go?" Famous Blade Snow asked as he touched the dagger in his hand. "I'm not going." Wuji shook his head. Wuji was doing business without any capital. Ming Jian Daoxue, who bought low and sold high, was not in line with his temperament. As for the others, they either went to the arena to farm points or to the alchemy shop to concoct poisons. To place one's pride, on the other hand, went to the streets to look at beauties. Such senseless behavior was better than sitting alone in the tavern and listening to the bragging of the people in the tavern. "What about you, old cow? Where are you going? Can you bring me along?" Wuji's gaze finally landed on Wang Yu. Wang Yu shrugged and said, "I'm going to level up, hiss." Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone sucked in a cold breath. Hard work isn't scary. What's scary is when people who are better than you work harder than you. After exclaiming in surprise, Wuji wiped his sweat and said, "Big brother, you don't have to work so hard, hee hee." Wang Yu laughed and said, "I'm about to reach level 60. Level 60. There was a bottleneck after level 50. At level 50, players learned the awakening skills. At level 60, players learned the ultimate skills of their class. For example, Bao San's Rising Dragon Slash and Wuji's Resurrection were one of the ultimate skills of their class. Now that Wang Yu was almost 60, the EXP gained from clearing dungeons with the others was like a drop in the bucket compared to her long EXP bar. If she wanted to learn the ultimate skills of her class, she would probably have to wait another month. Wang Yu was also a person who loved martial arts and enjoyed the process of becoming stronger. Naturally, he was also eager to learn the ultimate skills of his class. Wuji had played the game for many years and naturally knew the feeling of getting closer to the goal, so he waved his hand and said, "Then work hard, we won't bother you anymore." After saying that, everyone said goodbye to each other and went their separate ways. Seeing everyone leave, Wang Yu reinvigorated himself, clenched his fists, and walked along the Sunset Mountains in another direction. The Sunset Valley was the main road between Yuhuiqing and the main city of the Dark Faction. Past here was the Dark Faction's Salat City. Salat, in the language of rebirth, meant the end of the light. It was also known as the darkness after the afterglow, which was quite appropriate for their geographical location. The Sunset Valley was the border of Yuhuiqing. The monsters here were level 70 or so, Sunset Lone Traveler, and level 80, Sunset Hero. Both of these monsters were humanoid monsters, and they were of the swordsman class. Their agility and attack power were quite high, and their AI was not weak either. To ordinary players, these monsters were more difficult to spawn than an average boss. They were practically nightmarish existences, but in front of Wang Yu, they were as obedient as children. One had to know that Wang Yu's martial arts were developed for humans. Humanoid monsters with high attack, low defense, and low health were the best targets in Wang Yu's eyes. Even though there was a huge difference in level, Wang Yu was still able to farm them easily. There was no one in this high-level training area. Even if there was, no one would dare to steal monsters from Wang Yu. Moreover, the rewards from high-level monsters were quite high. Looking at the slowly advancing experience bar, Wang Yu felt more and more carefree. "I must get my experience to 50% today." Wang Yu made up her mind and used even more strength, hitting the monsters until they cried out in pain, looking very miserable. However, just as Wang Yu was in high spirits, a player suddenly stumbled out of the Sunset Valley. The player had green skin and 2 upturned fangs. It was obvious that she was the ugliest orc race in the game. However, looking at the person's figure, which was very voluptuous, it turned out to be a girl. Seeing the orc, Wang Yu could not help but be stunned for a moment. Meow, because the orc race was unbearably ugly, they were infamous for not attracting the attention of female players. They were known as the natural enemies of women. He did not expect there to be a girl with such a heavy taste. When the girl saw Wang Yu, she was also slightly stunned. After all, this was a level 70 to 80 training area, and it was rich in humanoid monsters with high attack and agility. 4 players at this stage of the game, it was an extremely dangerous place. It was somewhat unexpected that there was someone training here. But soon, the girl came to her senses and looked at Wang Yu with a panicked expression. "Can you help me?" Hearing this, Wang Yu subconsciously touched his nose. Chapter 11:16. Although the orcs were a race of the dark faction, Yu Huiqing was now a player's autonomous neutral main city. In theory, Yu Huiqing could accept players of any faction. Hence, the path that Wang Yu had pointed out could be considered a clear path. "Thank you." The female orc nodded gratefully at Wang Yu. Just as she was about to escape in the direction of Yu Huiqing, another group of people rushed out of the valley. There were humans and orcs in that group, and they came in all shapes and sizes. The only similarity was that these people had a strong murderous aura, and their equipment seemed to be much better than the female orcs. After seeing the female orc, everyone shouted, "That little slut is over there! Don't let her get away!" As he spoke, a group of people rushed over. Seeing this, the female orc was shocked. She turned around and ran. From the bow on the female orc's back, it was not difficult to see that she was an archer with the fastest movement speed. Although her level and equipment were not as good as these pursuers, due to her class advantage, her movement speed was not slow at all. In the blink of an eye, she had run not far from Wang Yu. At that time, the pursuers also noticed that there was another person here. They were stunned for a moment, then shouted at Wang Yu, "You, hurry up and stop that girl for me." Whether it was the female orc or these pursuers, Wang Yu did not know them. As for the conflict between them, Wang Yu did not know, nor did he want to know. Hence, with Wang Yu's indifferent personality, he could not be bothered to pay attention to these 2 groups of people. Hence, when he heard everyone's words, Wang Yu did not even raise his head. He minded his own business and continued to farm as if everything had nothing to do with him. "Hey, are you deaf?" Seeing that Wang Yu was ignoring him, the orc player leading the pursuer's expression turned ugly. He signaled the archer player behind him with his eyes. The archers understood and nocked their arrows. Immediately afterward, magic arrows were shot at the female orc. It was unknown if these fellows were afraid of missing the female orc, or if they wanted to take revenge on Wang Yu for ignoring their words. Half of the arrows in the sky were actually flying towards Wang Yu, who was very close to the female orc. Seeing the arrow flying towards him, Wang Yu could not help but frown. Regardless of whether these pursuers were intentional or unintentional, in Wang Yu's eyes, these fellows' actions were absolutely intentional, killing without a word. It looked like this group of players from the dark faction was too used to being arrogant. They did not know how to restrain themselves even after coming to another main city. As the saying went, if she could tolerate it, what could she not? Originally, Wang Yu was already somewhat displeased with the sight of a group of men bullying a young lady. Thinking of the principle that it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble, Wang Yu could still endure and not take action. However, now that these players dared to attack her, it was a different matter altogether. In a flash, Wang Yu stretched out his left hand and grabbed the female orc's collar, pulling her behind him. At the same time, his right hand drew a one-handed sword. With a flick of the sword, he quickly thrust it out. Clang, 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 clang. The shadow of the sword flashed, and a series of crisp sounds could be heard. All the arrows flying towards the two of them fell to the ground, while Wang Yu's feet did not even move. Seeing this scene, the scene instantly fell silent. The pursuer's eyes widened, suddenly forgetting to continue shooting arrows. Even the female orc behind Wang Yu could not help but open her mouth wide, as if doubting her own eyes. None of these players were ordinary players. Naturally, they had keen eyesight. The technique of blocking arrows was not considered too difficult. Any expert of a similar level could basically do it. However, it was not easy for someone like Wang Yu to do it so naturally. Furthermore, Wang Yu did not just deflect one arrow, but more than a dozen. Moreover, his actions were clean and efficient. It was simply shocking. These pursuers were not simple-minded. In the first place, they had to be humble and cautious in someone else's territory. Now that they saw Wang Yu's skills, their originally very arrogant attitude immediately wilted. Of course, if it was just Wang Yu alone, these fellows would not be so afraid. After all, a vicious tiger was afraid of a pack of wolves. However, this was an advanced leveling area. Under normal circumstances, there would be a fixed team to level up here. If there were Wang Yu's helpers nearby, it would be more embarrassing. Thinking of this, the orc leader walked forward, cleared his throat, and said to Wang Yu in a very polite tone, "Brother, we have no grudges in the past, and we have no enmity with each other. You wouldn't want to interfere in our Salate city's internal affairs, would you?" "Not interested." Wang Yu shook his head and said, "In the valley, you can do whatever you want, but this is Yu Huiqing, and Yu Huiqing does not welcome people like you." "Ha ha!" The orc sneered and said, "Do you think we're not welcome just because you say so? Do you think you have the final say in Yu Huiqing?" "That's right." Wang Yu nodded and said, "In Yu Huiqing, I have the final say." Ha ha! Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone could not help but laugh, shouting, "Who do you think you are? You think you have the final say? I'm afraid you've lost your mind." In the minds of ordinary players, the game environment belonged to all players. Even the largest guild in the main city did not have the qualifications to have the absolute right to speak. Even if there was a person who had the final say, it could only be the system. At this time, someone suddenly jumped out and told everyone that Yu Huiqing had the final say. It was inevitable that people would think that this person was sick in the head. "I am Yu Huiqing City Lord Iron Ox." Wang Yu did not hide his identity and directly revealed his identity. Unexpectedly, when the people in front of him heard this, not only did they not retreat in fear like Wang Yu thought, but they also laughed and said, "Iron Ox, this name is quite familiar. So what if you're City Lord Yu Huiqing? Can't I go play around in Yu Huiqing?" Seeing everyone's reaction, Wang Yu was dumbfounded. In the past, his name had been quite useful. Why did it not work today? Little did he know that in the era of big data, people had new hot topics every day. Old topics would basically be abandoned every 2 or 3 days. For example, a few days ago, people were arguing with each other over the collapse of a certain singer's image, and these days, people were turning from fans to passers-by because of a certain fresh meat's public relationship. After a few more days, people would probably forget about this matter and go looking for more interesting gossip. It was the same in the game. Coupled with the fact that the game was trending towards popularity, there was a large amount of new blood being injected into the game every day. The topic of discussion was updated even faster than in the real world. The popularity of the Quanzhen sect had long been covered up by forum threads, becoming history and legend. Even after a month, a considerable number of players in Yu Huiqing had forgotten about Xuanzhen, let alone the players in the main city next door. If the name Iron Ox was familiar, it was already considered that Wang Yu's influence was outstanding. Chapter 11-17. Wang Yu was generally a humble person. Since the others did not know him, he couldn't just run over and tell them about his achievements like a storyteller in a tavern. That would be too low profile, and not in line with Wang Yu's temperament. Seeing that these people were unmoved and were still trying to defend themselves, Wang Yu said indifferently, "No. These Salat players dared to chase people all the way to another main city, so they were obviously not easy to deal with." Seeing that Wang Yu was so resolute, everyone's faces became very ugly. After all, the Salat players had a lot of people, and they had a certain sense of belonging. The reason why they did not attack Wang Yu was not because they were afraid of Wang Yu, but because Wang Yu's strength was extraordinary, and he was a local of Yu Huiqing. If they really fought, it would be very troublesome. However, after everyone said good things, Wang Yu still did not give them face, which made the Salat players a little unhappy. In the eyes of the Salat players, Wang Yu's current behavior was like refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. To put it bluntly, it was a classic example of not taking face when given. The orc said with a green face, "It seems that you are determined to make life difficult for us, sir?" Seeing that the players who were chasing him were unfriendly and wanted to attack Wang Yu, before Wang Yu could answer, the female orc who had been standing behind Wang Yu suddenly said to Wang Yu, "No. This has nothing to do with you." With that, the female orc quietly stuffed a black object into Wang Yu's hand, and then rushed towards the players who were chasing him. The female orc was just a fragile archer, a proper long-range profession. Her level and equipment were relatively poor, and at this time, she was naturally not a match for the players. In less than a round, the female orc was beaten into a white light under the indifferent gaze of Wang Yu. After killing the female orc, the Salat players looked provocatively at Wang Yu and said, "So we killed her. Crazy." Wang Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A group of men ganged up on a woman and you're showing off? I don't even know this orc girl, what does killing her have to do with me? Shaking his head helplessly, Wang Yu ignored the group of idiots and continued to farm monsters. These fellows were only doing this to provoke Wang Yu. Naturally, they weren't really looking for trouble. Now that they saw Wang Yu admit defeat, they calmed down and returned to Salat with their heads held high. Not long after the players left, Wang Yu received a friend request. "Hataki 50/50 has added you as a friend. Do you accept?" Wang Yu was a very down-to-earth person. Seeing that someone had added him as a friend, he accepted without hesitation. Immediately after, Wang Yu received a message from Hataki 50/50. "Big Brother Iron Ox, I'm that orc archer. They didn't steal my token, right?" Token? When Wang Yu saw this message, he suddenly remembered that Hataki Wu Kai had given him a token, so he replied, "No. When will you come to get it?" "This," Hataki 50/50 said with some difficulty. "The secret pavilion is hunting me, so I don't dare to go out for a while. Can you help me give the token to the leader of Thousand Wave Temple, the Devil King Fungus?" "Devil King Fungus? What kind of stupid name is that?" Wang Yu scratched his head and couldn't help but complain. Hataki 50/50 was taken aback. "Don't mind the details. I'll leave it to you, Big Brother Iron Ox." "Alright." Wang Yu thought for a moment and said, "I'll mail it over when I return to the city. Have that Devil King Fungus add me as a friend." It was just delivering something. There was a mail system in the game, which was even more convenient than express delivery. Wang Yu was very willing to help others with something as simple as this. Soon, Wang Yu received a friend request from the Devil King Fungus. After adding the Devil King Fungus as a friend, Wang Yu casually replied, "I'll mail it over when I return to the city. Pay attention to your mailbox." "No." But as soon as Wang Yu sent the message, the Devil King Fungus replied, "The secret pavilion is going around capturing our people. I don't dare to send it to my mailbox. Can you send it over?" Seeing the Devil King Fungus message, Wang Yu was immediately put in a difficult position. Wang Yu's time was very valuable now. If he were to return to the city to mail it, it would just be a matter of convenience, and Wang Yu did not mind. However, if he were to deliver the token to Salat, it would be a different story. After all, there was no teleportation formation between Yuhuiqing and Salat City. A round trip would take at least 2 hours. Not to mention Wang Yu, even the people of Chuanjin who had nothing better to do wouldn't waste time on such a long journey. The Devil King Fungus also knew that it was not practical to have someone deliver something from so far away, so he hurriedly added, "Big Brother Iron Ox, I beg of you, as long as you return the token, I won't mistreat you. How about 1,000 gold? This isn't a matter of mistreating me. Big Brother Iron Ox, please, how about 2,000 gold?" This Devil King Fungus was not lacking in money. It was the first time Wang Yu had seen such a high delivery fee for a mere delivery. From the looks of it, as long as he did not agree, he would probably continue shouting. Wang Yu was not a greedy person, but if the Devil King Fungus continued shouting, who knew how high the price would be? At that time, it would seem as if Wang Yu was greedy for someone else's token, which was not very kind. Thus, Wang Yu hesitated for a moment before saying, "All right, but I'm not doing this for money." "I know." The Devil King Fungus smiled. As long as Wang Yu was willing to deliver it, the Devil King Fungus did not care what Wang Yu said. Closing the chat window, Wang Yu carefully took out the token from his bag and studied it. 2,000 gold coins for one trip. Just how valuable was this thing? Thinking, Wang Yu cast a detection spell on it, and the attributes of the token appeared. Dark Order, Precious Item. Item Introduction. Personal item of Great Elder Tyren under the 7th Apostle. It is also an item to activate certain quests. Note, 100% chance of dropping it on death. No wonder it was so valuable. So it was a quest item. After putting away the token, Wang Yu cleared all the mobs in front of him and disappeared from the Sunset Valley. Salat City, inside the office of the secret pavilion. The group that had chased after Hataki stood dejectedly at the door. A handsome elf player, playing with a dagger in his hand, looked at them and said calmly, "Green Devil, didn't you say that you killed everyone from Thousand Wave Temple?" This person was the guild leader of the secret pavilion, Heaven's Secret. Faced with Heaven's Secret's fingerprint, the orc player that had chased after Hataki nodded and said, "Yes, I killed them all." "What about the Dark Order?" Heaven's Secret asked again. "This." Green Devil thought for a moment and said, "It should be on someone. It didn't drop." Chapter 11:18. A fish that slipped through the net? Green Demon frowned and thought for a moment. "Impossible. Thousand Wave Temple only has a few people. We ambushed them as soon as they obtained the Darkness Decree. None of the players present were spared. How could there be a fish that slipped through the net?" Secret Insight raised an eyebrow. Could it be that the Darkness Decree was hidden by our guild's players? After all, it was an item with a 100% drop rate. If it wasn't on the players of Thousand Wave Temple, then it was definitely on the players of the Secret Pavilion. With the Secret Pavilion being such a large guild, it wasn't impossible for there to be a traitor. Seeing through Heaven's secrets was just a casual remark, but it scared Green Demon badly. He quickly explained, "That's even more impossible. The ones ambushing Thousand Wave Hall are our old subordinate. Furthermore, Thousand Wave Hall is just an underworld organization. They don't have the ability to poach our people." "Yes, you're right." Seeing Heaven's Secrets nodded. When it came to poaching people, one had to have the strength to do so. One couldn't just follow a rich person. The key was to have the ability to protect oneself. Otherwise, if one's identity was exposed, the bribed player and the bribed guild would be in trouble. In terms of reincarnation, the benefits of a large guild were close to that of the real world's middle class. If a small group wanted to poach a member of a large guild, unless that small group had the ability to buy out the player's future, no one would kill the goose that laid golden eggs. The Darkness Decree was something the guilds of Salate fought over, and the Secret Pavilion was the only large guild in Salate City. A small character like Thousand Wave Temple really couldn't poach someone from the Secret Pavilion. Then why is the darkness decree gone? Think about it again. Was there any accident at that time? After a moment of contemplation, Inside Heaven's Secrets asked. Unexpected? Green Demon thought for a moment, his expression changing slightly. There was an accident. At the time, there was an archer who wanted to escape, but she didn't. We chased her to Yu Huiqing and killed her. Did she not have the darkness decree on her? Secret Insight asked. No. Green Demon shook his head. When we were killing that girl, something unexpected happened. We encountered the City Lord of Yu Huiqing. City Lord Yu Huiqing? Seeing Heaven's Secrets turned pale with fright when he heard that. That legendary Iron Ox? Yes, it's him. At the mention of the legendary Iron Ox, Green Demon revealed a disdainful smile and said, What bullsh *T legendary expert? He's just a coward. We killed that little girl in front of him, and he didn't even dare to fart. This it can't be. Hearing Green Demon's words, Heaven's Secret said in disbelief, I heard people say that the kid beat up tens of thousands of Blood Alliance people. How could he be a coward? Did you guys meet a fake Iron Ox? Wang Yu could be considered a famous expert. The game was a world where the strong ruled. An expert with such a reputation would definitely have a few tricks up his sleeve. Even if he could take on 10,000 weak players, he should still be able to take on a dozen. How could he be a coward? Hearing Heaven's Secrets say that, Green Demon understood something. He awkwardly rubbed his nose and said, I don't know if it's real or fake, but he didn't dare to stop us. Then did he come into contact with the girl you were chasing? Heaven's Secret asked. This. Green Demon furrowed his brows and said, That guy called Iron Ox seemed to have pulled that girl. That's right. Hearing this, Heaven's Secret stabbed the dagger in his hand into the table and said, That girl must have given the token to that guy. Then what should we do? Once Heaven's Secret said this, Green Demon instantly panicked. Whether or not Wang Yu was the real Iron Ox, Yu Huiqing was not their territory. Not to mention the fact that Wang Yu was strolling around the level 70 leveling area, he did not look weak. Even if Wang Yu was just a smurf, as a dark faction player, he did not dare to stroll around Yu Huiqing. Since the start of the game, the Setting Sun Mountain Range had been the dividing line between the light and dark factions. Although Yu Huiqing was now absolutely neutral, out of habit, the dark faction players did not dare to cross the line. Ha! Unexpectedly, Heaven's Secret laughed and said, There's no rush. We just need to know who has the token. Anyway, that thing can only be used in Salat. But we can't use it even if we can't get it back. Green Demon had a conflicted expression. Don't worry, Heaven's Secret said with a smile. The girls from Thousand Wave Temple are definitely more anxious than us. They will definitely think of a way to get the token. Get the token? The boss of Thousand Wave Temple is currently blocked by our people at the resurrection point. Are we going to let her out? Green Demon asked. There's no need for that. Heaven's Secret shook his head. Thousand Wave Temple may not be big, but it's not small either. We only ambushed a small portion of them. It's just going to Yu Huiqing to get something. Do we need the guild leader to do it personally? Then, boss, what do you mean? It's very simple. Heaven's Secret said calmly. There are only two ways to send something across a faction's main city. One is to trade face-to-face, and the other is to send it through a mailbox. You just need to arrange for people to guard the mailbox and Golden Water City, the only road between Yu Huiqing and Salat. Boss, you're amazing. Green Demon said flatteringly. In that case, I'll bring people to guard the Golden Water Bridge. Inside Heaven's Secrets smiled faintly and said, Don't make any more mistakes this time. Green Demon patted his chest and guaranteed, Don't worry, boss. We promise we won't let those noobs from Thousand Wave Temple cross the bridge. Everyone, follow me. With that, Green Demon led his subordinates out of the office. Looking at Green Demon's back as he left, Heaven's Secret picked up the dagger on the table again and said to the air beside him, unpredictable, "Follow him and take a look." At that moment, a voice came from the air. "Why, you suspect Green Demon? That's not it." Heaven's Secret said, "This kid is too careless. I'm afraid he'll make another mistake." Although Yu Huiqing and Salat were neighbors, this was the first time Wang Yu had come here. In the background story, the ending of the War of Gods and Demons was actually quite happy. The Darkness faction was forced to the more barren side of the continent by the Light and Neutral factions. But no matter how barren the continent was, it was still fertile compared to the Demon's Hell. Therefore, the history of each faction ended with their side winning, which was a rather satisfactory ending. Chapter 11-19. Due to the geographical location of Salat City, the area from the city gate to the Sunset Valley was a bow-shaped plain known as the Nightmare Plains. This geographical location allowed for a wide field of vision, and it also served as a strategic buffer. Of course, in this era of firearms, I doubt you're interested in how useful this geographical location is in a war, so this old man won't say much. The reason why he had spouted so much nonsense was to inform everyone that there was an extremely wide moat outside Salat City. Not far from the city gate, there was a bridge facing Salat City. This bridge was the only road from Salat to the Nightmare Plain. It was also the legendary Golden Water Bridge. After leaving the guild office, Green Goblin led a group of people to the Golden Water Bridge and stood side by side at the bridgehead. The Golden Water Bridge wasn't very wide, so Green Goblin's group blocked the bridge completely. The Secret Pavilion was the most powerful guild in Salat City and had a bad reputation. As the Secret Pavilion's management, Green Goblin was also quite famous in Salat City. At this moment, he led a group of people to block the road with a fierce expression. The passing players quickly retreated, some even reaching the bridge. When they saw the Secret Pavilion's people blocking the road, they hurriedly turned back. After all, there were many leveling areas in Salat City, not just the Nightmare Plains. There was no need to offend the Secret Pavilion over such a trivial matter. One had to admit that divine insight was very useful. With the Secret Pavilion's people standing guard here, they completely separated Salat City from Yu Huiqing. The Thousand-Wave Temple players were completely blocked in the city, unable to leave even if they wanted to. Leading people to block the city gate was no small matter. News spread quickly in the game, and it didn't take long for all the players in Salat City to hear about the Secret Pavilion's blockade of the Golden Water Bridge. Even Wang Yu received news of the Devil Fungus. "Nyogu, where are you?" When Wang Yu saw the message, he looked around and replied, "I can already see your city gate." Very quickly, the Devil Fungus replied, "All right, you can go back now." WTF. Seeing the Devil King Fungus's reply, Wang Yu's head was full of black question marks. "Why?" Wang Yu asked, a little displeased. "Meow, I've already walked all the way from Yu Huiqing to the gates of Salat City. If I turn back now, are you kidding me?" Although Wang Yu was kind-hearted, no matter how good-tempered he would still feel uncomfortable playing tricks on people like this. "That," the Devil King Fungus cautiously said, "the people from the Secret Pavilion are blocking the city gates. I'm afraid they'll make things difficult for you. You should hurry back." In reality, players would only lose some EXP if they died. The loss wasn't particularly significant. The reason why Demon Fungus had tried so hard to persuade Wang Yu to return was because the Darkness Decree in Wang Yu's hands was a certain drop rate item. If Wang Yu died, he would die. However, if the Secret Pavilion's members snatched the Darkness Decree, the losses would outweigh the gains. However, when Wang Yu heard Devil Fungus's words, he smiled faintly and said, "Oh, I thought it was something important. Send me your coordinates, I'll be there soon." The Devil King Fungus froze when he saw the message. Then, he hurriedly said, "Big brother, are you going to barge in? Is there a problem?" Wang Yu asked. That's the secret pavilion's people, the Devil King Fungus reminded again. Oh. So what? Wang Yu's tone remained unperturbed. So what? The Devil King Fungus's heart sank. He then asked, Don't tell me you've never heard of the secret pavilion. No. Wang Yu's reply was very honest. The secret pavilion wasn't a famous large guild, and Wang Yu was a noob at the game. Even if it was a large guild, he wouldn't recognize it. Crap. Seeing Wang Yu's reply, the Devil King Fungus crumbled. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. In any case, don't come. I'll find someone to go to Yu Huiqing. Cut the crap and give me the coordinates, Wang Yu said, ignoring the Devil King Fungus's string of messages. Fortunately, Wang Yu was a man of his word. If it weren't for the fact that Wang Yu had warned him beforehand, Wang Yu wouldn't even want to talk to the Devil King Fungus anymore. Right now, Wang Yu only had one thought: return the token, leave, and never contact him again. The Devil King Fungus was startled by Wang Yu's sudden attitude. He could not help but reply, I'm at the resurrection point. Wait. After replying, Wang Yu closed the chat window and continued in the direction of Salat City. It didn't take long before he saw the Golden Water Bridge and the Green Goblins on it. Salat City also had players grinding in the Nightmare Plain. However, news of the secret pavilion blocking the road at the bridge had long since spread throughout the city. Therefore, when people saw the secret pavilion players standing on the bridge, they stayed far away, not daring to approach. On the other hand, Wang Yu walked on the bridge with his head lowered. Seeing someone fearlessly charging forward, the players who were blocked at the bridge exclaimed, Who is this kid? Doesn't he know that the secret pavilion is blocking the road ahead? I don't know. Looking at his silly look, he should be a newbie. Tisk tsk. He's still young. At that moment, Lu Mo's group also saw Wang Yu in the distance. Although they were too far away and couldn't see his face clearly, everyone else was at the bridge, not daring to come over. Only Wang Yu walked onto the bridge alone, immediately attracting the attention of Lu Mo's group. So, the Green Goblins shouted at Wang Yu, Hey, this road is blocked, do you know that? Get lost. Wang Yu ignored the Green Goblins and walked forward. Hey, you want to stand out? Don't listen, hey. Seeing that Wang Yu had no intention of paying attention to him, the Green Goblins immediately lost his composure. He unsheathed his weapon and angrily broke away from the group, walking toward Wang Yu. But after a few steps, the Green Goblins saw Wang Yu's appearance clearly. So it's you. Seeing Wang Yu's appearance, the Green Goblins was startled. Then, a look of joy appeared on his face. This was what it meant to wear out iron shoes in fruitless search, only to find it by chance. No matter how long the secret pavilion's hands were, they did not dare to cross the main city to reach out to Yu Huiqing. Therefore, the Green Goblins and the others were only blocking the Thousand Wave Temple's people, preventing them from going to Yu Huiqing to get the token. Who would have thought that instead of the Thousand Wave Temple's people, they would see Wang Yu with the token? This was truly an unexpected harvest. Of course, the Green Goblins had seen Wang Yu's skills and knew that he would not be able to fight him one-on-one. After the pleasant surprise, he hurriedly retreated to the secret pavilion's formation and pointed at Wang Yu, shouting, Everyone, surround him. We can't let him escape this time. Chapter 11:21. Wang Yu and the Green Goblins were only one bridge away from each other. With the movement speed of the in-game characters, even the slowest tank classes could reach them in an instant. Soon, everyone surrounded Wang Yu tightly. However, Green Demon also knew that Wang Yu was skilled. If he attacked directly, he would inevitably suffer losses. Thus, Green Demon walked over with a smile and said, I was wondering why you looked familiar. So it's you. Did you know that this bridge has been sealed? Having just met Green Demon, Wang Yu naturally recognized Green Demon's group. He knew that Green Demon was deliberately making things difficult for him, so he replied indifferently, The bridge is sealed? Who made that rule? He. Green Demon sneered. Since you have the final say, Yu Huiqing, then I have the final say in Salat. The logic is the same. It's not the same. Wang Yu shook his head and asked, Are you the city lord? Green Demon was stunned. Wasn't that right? Wang Yu dared to say that he had the final say because Wang Yu was the system-certified city lord of Yu Huiqing and had absolute authority. Green Demon was just an ordinary player. No matter how powerful the secret pavilion was, he did not have the authority to command the entire city, let alone be compared to the city lord. Was he worthy? After being stunned for a moment, Green Demon shamelessly said, What does it have to do with you whether I'm the city lord or not? You can't cross this bridge anyway. As he spoke, the people surrounding Wang Yu took another step forward and closed the encirclement, ready for battle. Wang Yu glanced at the crowd from the corner of her eyes and calmly asked, What if I insist on passing? You can cross. Green Demon extended his hand in front of Wang Yu and said, As long as you hand over the Dark Order, no one will care if you sleep on the bridge. I'm not afraid to tell you that this is Salat, not Yu Huiqing. There's no benefit in going against the secret pavilion. The Dark Law. Wang Yu immediately understood what Lu Mo and the others meant. He couldn't help sneering, That thing is on me, but why should I give it to you? Why? Hearing Wang Yu's words, Green Demon knew that Wang Yu did not want to be merciful. His expression darkened as he said, Based on this. As he spoke, Green Demon raised the greatsword in his hand and slashed at Wang Yu. At the same time, the secret pavilion's players surrounding Wang Yu also took action. Seeing the secret pavilion's players make their move, Wang Yu calmly took a step forward. Before the Green Demon's greatsword could land on his body, he had already arrived before the Green Demon, coming face to face with him. Although a warrior was a melee class, the greatsword in his hand was a two-handed weapon. If a grandmaster of combat or assassin cut in during an attack, the warrior would not be able to defend in time, and the outcome would be extremely awkward. Of course, there were only a handful of players who had the ability and courage to cut in front of a warrior while he was attacking. Seeing Wang Yu suddenly appear before him, Green Demon jumped in fright. He wanted to retract his weapon, but it was too late. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu pressed down on Green Demon's right shoulder with his left hand and grabbed his wrist with his right. He pressed his pinky against the Green Demon's wrist and pushed up with his thumb. Green Demon immediately felt his hand go numb, and his weapon slipped out of his hand. Weapons were more important to gamers than any other equipment. Green Demon was dumbfounded when his weapon was knocked out of his hand. He subconsciously rushed forward to snatch it back. However, just as Green Demon jumped up, Wang Yu's right hand casually slapped behind him, hitting the hilt of his sword. Green Demon's greatsword was hit again, brushing past the face of the shield warrior behind Wang Yu and stabbing into the head of an archer at the back of the formation. It was common knowledge that the attack of a thrown weapon was calculated based on the attack power of the thrower. With this slap from Wang Yu, Green Demon's greatsword was equivalent to being thrown by Wang Yu. Wang Yu's attack power was so high that even a shield warrior with thick skin and flesh couldn't take it, let alone an archer with low HP. The greatsword stabbed into the archer's head. The archer didn't even get a chance to groan before he turned into white light. The greatsword also fell under the bridge without any resistance. At that moment, Wang Yu retracted his right hand and grabbed Green Demon's collar. He extended his left hand and clamped onto Green Demon's waist. He spun around and spun Green Demon around. Bang, 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 bang! A series of muffled sounds rang out as the attacks of every member of the secret pavilion landed on the Green Fiend. The pitiful Green Fiend was smashed into a streak of white light, and the Green Fiend followed the archer. Before it died, it looked in the direction of the falling weapon with a longing gaze. Shield Bash and Charge were the starting attack skills of shield warriors. They were also one of the control skills with the highest priority. After successfully blocking these two skills with Green Demon, the shield warriors just happened to enter Wang Yu's attack range. It was quite terrifying to be closed in by a grandmaster of combat. The shield warriors looked at each other and were about to retreat in panic. At this moment, Wang Yu leaped up and kicked with a ball of flames wrapped around his leg. Flame tornado kick. The shield warriors who had only run a few steps away were immediately sucked into Wang Yu's feet. Wang Yu's damage was so high that everyone's HP dropped by half after taking Wang Yu's flame tornado kick head-on. All the shield warriors were dumbfounded. Both of them were level 50 tank. Even without defense, they had at least 100,000 HP. On the other hand, Wang Yu was merely a grandmaster of combat. Yet, a single skill from her had shaved away over half of her HP. Such high attack power was simply unheard of. At that time, Wang Yu landed after casting Flame Tornado Kick. Boom! With a thunderous sound, a circle of lightning spread out from under Wang Yu. Everyone from the secret pavilion trembled, and in the next second, they appeared in the resurrection point of their ant. After resurrecting, everyone was confused. After playing as shield warriors for so many years, instant kills had always been extremely far away from them. However, this was definitely the worst gaming experience they had ever had. Did we get insta-killed? A shield warrior looked at his brothers around him, finding it a little hard to accept this fact. Another shield warrior patted his shoulder and said, "No, we didn't get insta-killed. We got insta-killed by a grandmaster of combat." F***CK. Everyone was stunned again. If they had been insta-killed by a mage, who went all out and was a cannon, they would definitely be speechless. However, what was a grandmaster of combat? They were a bunch of trash who didn't even have a weapon specialization. Their attack power was a joke. How could such a trash class insta-kill someone? Everyone couldn't help but doubt their lives. At this moment, on the Golden Water Bridge, everyone was shocked when they saw Wang Yu send all the tanks back to the city in a single round. This was especially true for the survivors of the secret pavilion. They broke out in a cold sweat. Damn it, he had insta-killed a bunch of tanks with a raise of his hand. Was this bastard cheating? As they thought about this, the remaining players of the secret pavilion involuntarily retreated. Chapter 11:22. Soon, the passers-by by the bridge came to their senses and pointed at Wang Yu in surprise. F***CK, what was that skill just now? How could it kill a shield warrior? Since when did Salat have such a person? The main city in Rebirth was actually about the size of a town in real life. Although there were many people, it was mainly because of the concentration of players. Therefore, if there were a few experts in each main city, everyone would be excited to talk about them. It was impossible for someone like Wang Yu, who could kill a tank in one hit, to be unknown. It looks like it's Flaming Tornado Kick. At this moment, someone in the crowd said. However, that person's voice was not loud, and he spoke cautiously as if he was not sure. In fact, Flaming Tornado Kick was one of the signature skills of Grandmasters of Combat. It was a very recognizable skill. The reason why no one recognized it was because no one dared to easily believe that a mere Grandmaster of Combat's damage could be so high that it could kill someone in one hit. When someone said it was this skill, someone immediately retorted, "Are you kidding me? A Grandmaster of Combat can kill someone in one hit? Is there **T in your brain? That's hard to say. Didn't you hear the people from the secret pavilion say that this big guy is not from our city? He seems to be from another main city." From another main city. Some veteran players heard this and their expressions changed. Could he be from our neighbor, Yu Huiqing? Yes, he seems to be from something called Hui City. F***CK. So it's him. No wonder. The veteran players heard this and immediately understood. Grandmasters of Combat were a weak class, but it did not mean that all Grandmasters of Combat were weak, especially in the main cities that were close to Yu Huiqing. Any player who had played since the open beta would not forget the fear of being dominated by a certain Grandmaster of Combat. It would be shocking for other Grandmasters of Combat to kill their opponents in one hit, but it was only reasonable and expected for him. Thinking of this, the veteran players suddenly looked like they were watching a show. They touched their chins and said, "Heh, this is going to be fun. The secret pavilion is going to have a hard time." What do you mean? The new players did not experience that era. Seeing the expressions of the veteran players, they could not help but be curious. You guys haven't been to the forum to dig graves, right? No, dig more and you'll find some history. The old players were full of superiority. At the same time, the secret pavilion's players also realized that Iron Ox wasn't a fake. The rumors they had heard before were most likely true. After all, in the eyes of ordinary people, there was not much difference between fighting against 10,000 and killing a tank in an instant. When encountering such a ruthless person, it was best not to show off. A qualified martial artist must control their desire to fight. Wang Yu was not a bloodthirsty person, nor was he interested in bullying ordinary people. Moreover, Salat was not Yu Huiqing, so it was inconvenient for him to have too many PK points. Seeing the secret pavilion's players retreating, Wang Yu retracted his combat stance and asked calmly, "Can I leave now?" The secret pavilion's players remained silent. Looking at the friendly Wang Yu, they quickly leaned against the bridge's railing, opening up a path for Wang Yu. It seemed that even if these guys didn't say anything, their bodies were still very honest. "Thank you." Wang Yu politely cupped his fists and continued forward. However, after taking only a few steps, Wang Yu suddenly stopped. Seeing that Wang Yu had stopped moving, the secret pavilion's players exclaimed and hurriedly retreated. Then, they heard Wang Yu turn his head and say, "You still won't give up? I don't dare. I don't dare." Hearing this, the secret pavilion's players repeatedly waved their hands as they retreated. Wang Yu raised his head and pointed at the air, saying, "I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about him." A string of question marks appeared in everyone's minds. Suddenly, Wang Yu extended his hand and pulling an assassin out of thin air. The assassin was thin and small, and his face was covered, making it impossible to see his appearance. When Wang Yu grabbed him, the assassin was holding a dagger. The assassin should have been about to attack. However, when Wang Yu pulled him out of thin air, his eyes filled with shock. Wang Yu didn't find the assassin's shock strange at all. After all, every assassin Wang Yu had pulled him out of thin air had the same expression. However, this skinny assassin's reaction was extremely fast. Without waiting for Wang Yu to pull him in front of her, the assassin's other hand also took out a dagger. He stomped on the ground, took a few steps forward, and regained control of his body. He then turned his body, and the dagger slashed towards Wang Yu's wrist at a strange angle. If it were an ordinary assassin, they would definitely take this attack head-on, and then pull him over to stab him in return. Every stab would draw blood, both hot-blooded and effective. However, Wang Yu was a martial artist. Out of instinct, when faced with such an attack, he would naturally avoid the opponent's attack. So when he saw the skinny assassin extend his dagger, Wang Yu instinctively let go of the assassin's wrist. After forcing Wang Yu back, the assassin didn't stop. Immediately after, he held the dagger in his right hand horizontally in front of him and stabbed the dagger in his left hand at Wang Yu's chest. Seeing this, Wang Yu narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, an expert. The assassin's left dagger was ferocious, and the dagger in his right hand was ready to strike. Although it looked like an ordinary stab, it was actually extremely dangerous. There weren't many assassins who wielded dual daggers to begin with, and those who could wield dual daggers to such a level were even rarer. Of course, in Wang Yu's eyes, the difference between an expert and a beginner was very simple. Those who could be killed by him in one move were collectively known as opponents, while those who could last a few rounds under his hands were known as experts. In fact, regardless of whether the opponent was an expert, The nature was basically the same. It was just a matter of surviving for a few more seconds. Seeing that the assassin's dagger was about to stab into his chest, Wang Yu didn't panic. He tilted his body slightly and dodged the assassin's left-hand attack. At the same time, he activated the Grandmaster of Combat's ramming skill, Iron Mountain Backrest. Bang! Wang Yu's shoulder rammed into the assassin's chest. The assassin's right hand, which had been ready to strike, was directly knocked into his own body, and he almost slit his own neck. Although Iron Mountain Backrest didn't have much attack power, its priority was still very high. Moreover, it had a knockback effect. Assassins didn't have any high-priority skills, so when he was rammed by Wang Yu, he was sent flying several meters. The assassin's skills were clearly not bad either. With a somersault in the air, he cancelled out the impact of Wang Yu's attack. Then, he landed on one knee and pressed his right hand against the ground. His movements were quite agile. At this time, Wang Yu also noticed the guild emblem on the assassin's chest. It was actually the same as the Secret Pavilion's players. Thus, he said with some surprise, I didn't expect the Secret Pavilion to have an expert like you. Humph! The assassin coldly snorted. The legendary Iron Ox is only SOSO. My name is Unpredictable. Remember my name. Chapter 11:23. Unpredictable's destiny had just seen Wang Yu defeat Green Goblin and the others in one move, so he had some understanding of Wang Yu's strength. However, not only did he dare to sneak attack, but he also dared to mock Wang Yu. From this, it could be seen that Unpredictable's destiny was also quite a conceited guy. As soon as Wang Yu's voice fell, Unpredictable's face suddenly became very ugly. Arrogant! Embarrassed and resentful, Unpredictable's destiny shouted angrily, raised his hands, and threw a row of flying knives straight at Wang Yu. Interesting. Seeing Unpredictable's flying knives, a playful smile appeared on Wang Yu's face. Flying knives were secondary weapons, and Wang Yu was quite familiar with the settings of secondary weapons. For professions other than archers, although the damage of secondary weapons was considerable, without the shooting assistance of the system, secondary weapons were at most a restraining tool. However, Unpredictable's flying knives all flew towards Wang Yu. Wang Yu practiced kung fu and was at the top level in the industry, so he was naturally proficient in hidden weapons. From Unpredictable's throwing method, although there was some shadow of an insider, it was not difficult to see that it was just a form. However, even Wang Yu had to admit that it was not easy for him to throw out a row of flying daggers in one go and aim at a single target. After all, throwing multiple hidden weapons at the same target at one time required extremely high control of wrist strength. Not only must the force be evenly distributed, but also the distance between the target and the target must be calculated. However, Heavenly Secret's Unfathomable had done it with a casual toss. From this, it could be seen that this guy did not rely on real kung fu, but his secondary weapon. His secondary weapon was actually supported by the system. From a game perspective, an assassin with long-range support was basically equivalent to an archer who knew how to go invisible. It was nothing more than a shorter range. Just think about it. An archer doesn't need to rely on the terrain to silently attack a target from behind. Just how terrifying would that be? Such a class setting is simply like a bug. No wonder Tianji Unpredictable is so confident. It seems that this kid really has his own confidence. Of course, the mysteries of the heavens were hard to fathom. His blind confidence had picked the wrong target this time. What did Wang Yu do? Kung Fu Master. Ever since he was a teenager, Wang Yu had been challenging people all over the world. What kind of hidden weapons expert had Wang Yu not seen? What kind of weapon was Wang Yu not proficient in? Even if the real hidden weapons experts of the Tang sect of Shu came, they wouldn't dare to show off in front of Wang Yu, let alone Unpredictable Heaven's Secret. Wang Yu was only a few meters away from Wang Yu. The flying daggers arrived in front of Wang Yu in the blink of an eye. Wang Yu had a well-thought-out plan, so he took a small step back. At the same time, he waved his hand from left to right and effortlessly caught all the flying daggers in his hand. Unpredictable, who had already prepared the second wave of flying daggers to shoot at Wang Yu, was stunned when he saw this scene. The flying dagger in his hand almost fell to the ground. This is impossible. Looking at Wang Yu, who was looking at him with a playful smile, the originally calm, unpredictable heavenly secrets broke out in a cold sweat. Hee. Wang Yu smiled slightly and said indifferently, "Young man, hidden weapons don't play like this." As he spoke, Wang Yu raised his hand and threw back the flying daggers that were unpredictable by the heavens. Unpredictable Tianji didn't have Wang Yu's martial arts skills, so he naturally couldn't catch the flying dagger. Before unpredictable Tianji could dodge, the flying dagger had already pierced into his wrist, ankle, neck, and chest. Because the flying daggers were throwing items, their attributes were the same as arrows. After being caught by Wang Yu and thrown out, there was no damage, so Unpredictable only forcefully lost 6 HP. But this time, the heavenly secrets Unfathomable stood there in a daze, his face ashen. He did not die, but his heart died. After being stunned for a full 3 seconds, Unpredictable asked in disbelief, Could this be the legendary Plum Blossom 6 degrees? What Wang Yu said was right. Hidden weapons were not meant to be used in unpredictable ways. The essence of hidden weapons lay in the element of surprise. Once they were thrown, the target would not know where they would be hit next. In a situation like this, a true hidden weapons master would definitely attack different parts of the target. Just like Unpredictable, throwing so many flying daggers at the same point was purely for show. From a technical point of view, it was meaningless. Plum Blossom 6 degrees was the highest realm of hidden weapons. It could be thrown at different parts of the body at the same time, catching the target off guard and killing them silently. However, the Plum Blossom 6 degrees was only a legend. Nowadays, even those who used hidden weapons were starting to doubt whether the limits of the human body could really reach this realm. Moreover, Tianji was just a layman who had only learned a few moves. Now that he saw Wang Yu's technique, Unpredictable's mood was obvious. That's right. Wang Yu nodded his head and asked, What do you think? Do you still want to play? Unpredictable's face turned red and he lowered his head. What a joke. He had been tested out by his opponent the moment he made a move, but Wang Yu's move was clean and neat, unfathomable. If this didn't scare Unpredictable Heavenly Secrets, then it could only be said that Unpredictable Heavenly Secrets didn't know how to adapt to circumstances. Subduing the enemy without fighting was the highest realm of martial arts. After successfully shocking Unfathomable, Wang Yu turned around and walked towards Salat City. Looking at Wang Yu's back as she left, Unpredictable Heaven sighed and sent a message to Insightful Heaven, Boss, the mission has failed. What? After a while, Unpredictable replied, What's the situation? We can't beat them. Unpredictable was a straightforward guy, and he simply replied with 3 words. Are you kidding me? Inside Heaven's Secrets exclaimed. You think you can't beat those girls from Thousand Wave Hall? Even heroes can't resist the charms of beauties? No. Unpredictable explained. Thousand Wave Hall didn't send anyone to Yu Huiqing. Instead, Yu Huiqing sent someone to deliver them personally. It's that Iron Ox. I can't beat him. Iron Ox delivered them? Seeing the Unpredictable Heavenly Secrets message, Heavenly Secrets was dumbfounded. The great Afterglow City Lord actually ran all the way here to be a delivery boy for a bunch of chicks? Does he even have the awareness of an expert? Although Yu Huiqing and Salat were neighbors, because they belonged to different factions, the teleportation formation could not be used. If he wanted to visit, he could only walk, and it would take at least an hour to walk back and forth. For expert players, time was extremely valuable. No one would waste an hour on strangers, not to mention acting as a delivery boy for a group of girls. Seeing Heaven's Secret had been waiting for the Thousand-Wave Hall disciples to walk into his trap. He hadn't expected the big bad wolf to show up to serve him. Chapter 11:24. Heaven's Secret was an old player who had heard of Wang Yu's name since the game had officially started. Their aunt was so close to Yu Huiqing, so there was no way Heaven's Secret wouldn't know about Chuanjun. Originally, Heaven's Secret had asked Green Demon to block the road on the Golden Water Bridge in order to stop the people from Thousand Wave Hall. Wang Yu's sudden interference had directly disrupted Heaven's Secret's plans. In the face of this sudden disruption, even Heavenly Secrets was at a loss as to what to do. Then, what should we do next? Seeing Heaven's Secret not say anything, Unfathomable Heaven asked weakly. Seeing Heaven's Secret received the news, he pondered for a moment before solemnly asking, "I've only heard of Iron Bull's power before, but I've never fought him before. You've just fought with that grandson. How many people do you think we need to defeat him?" "Oh." Unfathomable Heaven's Secret thought for a moment and said with lingering fear, "Can we not fight? Even if we all attack together, we can't beat him?" Seeing Unfathomable Heaven's Secret's message, Heaven's Secret asked in shock, "Could the rumors be true? This guy alone was an army?" "That's not it." Unfathomable Heaven said, "No matter how strong he is, he's only one person. He definitely isn't our opponent in a head-on fight, but do you think there's a point in provoking him?" You're right." Heaven's Secret nodded his head. Heaven's Secret Pavilion wasn't a famous guild. Normally, they could only do whatever they wanted in places like Salat. They couldn't compare to an old guild like Blood Alliance. An expert like Wang Yu was definitely not someone they could afford to offend. Putting aside Wang Yu and his group, even a small group like the Quanzhen sect could cause a lot of trouble in the Secret Heaven Pavilion if they really wanted to play dirty tricks, let alone someone like Wang Yu. If they really angered Wang Yu and there was a city war. Sky Dragon City was a living example. Provoking Wang Yu definitely wasn't a wise choice. "It seems we can only make a move on Thousand Wave Hall," Secret Insight said after a moment of contemplation. Who didn't know how to bully pushovers? They didn't dare to offend Wang Yu, but did they not dare to offend Thousand Wave Hall? Salat and Yu Huiqing were in the same faction, and a weak guild like Thousand Wave Temple shouldn't have anything to do with Wang Yu. Although he didn't know why Wang Yu had come to Thousand Wave Hall to deliver something, if he really wanted to attack Thousand Wave Hall, Wang Yu probably wouldn't stop him. After all, this was Salat City. If Wang Yu were to forcefully intervene in the internal conflicts of other main cities, it would be inexcusable. Salat's guards would not agree to it. "That makes sense." Unfathomable nodded, then hurriedly said, "Since that's the case, hurry up and guard the resurrection point. Once he enters the city, he'll definitely make a deal with Thousand Wave Temple's guild leader. I'll be there shortly." Unfathomable Knowledge responded. He stood up and left the guild office. After calling out to the guild, he made a beeline for the resurrection point. At the same time, Wang Yu had already entered Salat City. Wang Yu's sense of direction wasn't particularly strong. Naturally, he wouldn't wander around in such an unfamiliar main city. After having the Demon King Fungus send him a coordinate, Wang Yu took to the air and quickly arrived at the resurrection point before Unfathomable Knowledge could. Thousand Wave Temple was a very unique guild. The guild's players were all female. In the game, there was no difference between male and female characters in terms of attribute. However, women were ultimately women. It was inevitable that they would be treated as a disadvantaged group. The women of Thousand Wave Temple, on the other hand, believed that they were strong and did not need to be pitted. Thus, Thousand Wave Temple had a second major characteristic. All of its players were beastmen. This was also why the Secret Pavilion would bully Thousand Wave Temple. In this era where people judged people by their appearance, no one treated Thousand Wave Temple's players as women. Thousand Wave Temple's players also knew that they were no match for the secret pavilion. After being killed, they obediently gathered at the Archer's resurrection point and did not go out to die. When Wang Yu arrived at the resurrection point according to the Demon King Fungus's coordinates, the first thing he saw was a group of lush green Beastman girls. The girls were all strangely ugly, but all of them were curvaceous. It couldn't be helped. One couldn't do anything about their faces, so they could only adjust their figures. It was in women's nature to love beauty. Seeing this group of strange girls, Wang Yu immediately understood why this guild was called Thousand Wave Temple. Big Brother Iron Ox, you're here. In the end, archers had better eyesight. As soon as Wang Yu entered the resurrection point, Hataki Wu rushed over and grabbed Wang Yu's arm. Her fangs kept rubbing against Wang Yu's body. From afar, it looked like a monster gnawing on a human. It was a very strange scene. You really came in? At this moment, a clear voice came from behind Wang Yu. Hearing someone speak to him, Wang Yu turned around and saw a Beastman Grandmaster of Combat standing not far behind him, his eyes filled with disbelief. This Beastman was different from the other players of Thousand Wave Temple. The others basically inherited the characteristics of Beastmen, with a slender waist and long leg. This Beastman, on the other hand, was extremely short and chubby. His height was no different from that of a 12-year-old child. He didn't have fangs, and his chest was flat. Facing this Beastman, Wang Yu couldn't tell whether it was a man or a woman at first glance. Wang Yu nodded. Then, he asked Hataki Wu in confusion, She's our guild leader, the Demon King Fungus. Hataki Wu introduced to Wang Yu. Your guild leader is a child? Wang Yu was surprised. Rebirth was a game that only prevented players from getting addicted to the game. There were no age restrictions, and it wasn't like there weren't any children. However, the guild leader was still a leader. Letting a child be the guild leader was a little childish. Seeing that Wang Yu dared to look down on her, the Demon King Fungus immediately jumped up and shouted, Who are you calling a child? I'm 18 years old this year. Girl? Wang Yu was stunned again. He asked Hataki Wu in a low voice, Is she a girl? She can't be a boy in disguise, right? The little brats nowadays, each and every one of them hadn't even grown out all their hair, but their courage for lust wasn't small at all. Putting aside the distant ones, parting AO was a living example. To place one's pride, little bro's dream was to collect a bunch of long-legged, big-breasted girls for his harem. Now, looking at the Demon King Fungus who had turned his dream into reality, he felt that the younger generation would surpass the older generation. What are you talking about? Hataki Wu was speechless. She's our big sis. Don't talk nonsense. Wang Yu rubbed his nose awkwardly. At this moment, the Demon King Fungus asked again, Isn't the secret pavilion blocking the road? How did you get in? Wang Yu made a walking gesture with his finger and said, I walked in. TSK. The Demon King Fungus curled her lip. Forget it if you don't want to tell me. Where's my stuff? Wang Yu took out the Dark Order from his pocket and waved it in front of the Demon King Fungus. It's here. Give it to me. The Demon King Fungus' eyes lit up when she saw the Dark Order, and she immediately pounced over. Chapter 11:25. Wang Yu was not a person who was particularly attached to money. It was just that the Devil King mushroom was not very sensible. After all, Wang Yu had taken time out of his busy schedule to make a trip to Salat City. On his way there, he had even offended Salat City's local guild, the Secret Pavilion. Not to mention a great expert like Wang Yu, even if it was anyone else, they would still have to exchange the goods after they had already agreed on the price. Not only did this girl not mention the matter of money, but she was also suspicious of Wang Yu. Now, she was snatching the token from Wang Yu's hands without saying a word. Fortunately, Wang Yu had a good temper. If it were someone else, they would have already fallen out with her. Of course, they were currently in the safe zone, so Wang Yu could not touch the Devil King fungus. However, if the item was in Wang Yu's hands and it was so easily snatched away, Wang Yu might as well give up being an expert. Seeing that Wang Yu and the Devil King fungus were fighting, Hatake 50/50 was stunned. It could not be helped. Hatake 50/50 was the one who found Wang Yu, and the person that Wang Yu captured was his guild leader. The two of them fought as soon as they met, so Hatake 50/50 was the most awkward of all. For a moment, Hatake 50/50 looked at Wang Yu, and then at the Devil King fungus, completely at a loss. It was common knowledge that Wang Yu was tall and sturdy, while the Devil King fungus was rather small. When Wang Yu mentioned it, the Devil King fungus was like a stray cat that had its neck grabbed. It instantly lost its footing, and its short limbs kept flailing in the air. As it struggled, it shouted, "Be ****, let go of me! 50/50, look at the kind of people you know." Hearing the Devil King fungus's words, Wang Yu's expression turned even uglier. "Meow. I came all the way here to deliver something to this stinking brat." Not only did this brat go back on her words, but she even said such malicious words. She really needs to be taught a lesson. If I don't teach her a lesson, she will think that the world revolves around her. At this moment, Hatake Wu Wu Kai saw that the Demon King fungus was really getting anxious, and he hurriedly tried to persuade him. "Brother Iron Ox, let's talk this out. Please let our guild leader go, I beg of you." Everyone knew that Wang Yu was not someone with a heart of stone. On the contrary, this kid had always been good-natured and was famous for being amenable to coaxing but not coercion. The tougher his attitude was, the more Wang Yu liked to confront him head-on. However, when Chimu opened his mouth to ask for help, Wang Yu's ears immediately softened. Wang Yu's expression froze when he heard this, and he casually threw the Demon King fungus on the ground. After all, they were in the safe zone. Even if Wang Yu did not release the Demon King fungus, he could not do anything to her. At most, he would just criticize her verbally. With how clumsy Wang Yu was, it would be embarrassing for him to bicker with a little brat like the Demon King fungus. Secondly, it was hard to tell who would be the one educating who. Moreover, Wang Yu could not bear to let Chimu Wu Kai lose face, so he might as well do her a favor. After the Demon King fungus landed on the ground, she walked to Chimu Wu Kai's side with a green face. She pointed at Chimu Wu Kai and scolded, "You piece of trash, I asked you to protect the Dark Order, but where did you go? Now listen up, if you don't find me the Dark Order, don't take your salary for this month." As she spoke, the Demon King fungus curled her lips and glared at Wang Yu. It was obvious that these words were not only for Chimu Wu Kai to hear. This little brat knew that Wang Yu and Chimu Wu Kai seemed to be friends, so she purposely used Chimu Wu Kai to give Wang Yu a hard time. When Wang Yu saw the Demon King fungus scolding Chimu Wu Kai like that, he could not help but feel annoyed. Of course, he was even more surprised. After being in the gaming circle for so long, Wang Yu knew that many guilds had a corporate system. The guild leader was the boss, and the members were the workers. However, this was a civilized society where everyone was treated equally. No matter how amazing a boss was, he was not the master of his employees. Even large guilds like the Blood Alliance, which had a clear system, did not dare to disrespect their employees. There were so many guilds in the game, and they definitely did not lack food. Changing guilds was a small matter, but secretly taking advantage of them was definitely not worth it. Even if Chimu Wu Kai really did lose the Dark Order, Demon King fungus scolded her subordinates in front of so many people and even threatened to deduct her salary was a little too much. Moreover, everyone had agreed that it was a paid delivery. She did not pay and even took it out on her employees. How despicable! Thinking up to this point, Wang Yu immediately said unhappily, "Watch your mouth. Don't you know how to respect people? You were the one who agreed that I would get 2,000 gold for delivering the token. What does that have to do with little Wu Kai?" Hee hee. Demon King fungus laughed coldly. What does it have to do with you that I'm talking to my subordinates? 2,000 gold is nothing. Little Wu Kai, you were the one who lost the Dark Order, so you don't mind deducting it from your salary, right? Hearing Demon King Fungus's words, Chimu Wu Kai's ferocious face immediately revealed a panicked expression. At the same time, a cross appeared on Wang Yu's forehead. This Demon King Fungus looked like a child. How could he be so vicious? He was clearly forcing Wang Yu to make a wasted trip. If it were anyone else in Xuanzhen, they would definitely turn around and leave without looking back. However, Wang Yu was a kind-hearted person. He had also experienced life without money, and he knew how important a month's salary was to the lowest level of ordinary players. Although he was a little saintly, Wang Yu still felt guilty that he had caused Chimu Wu Kai to waste a month's worth of work. You win. Wang Yu glared at Demon King Fungus. He took out the Dark Order and handed it over. Seeing that Wang Yu was forced to compromise, Demon King Fungus revealed a hint of joy on his face. Just as he was about to take the token, he suddenly heard a voice. City Lord Tai, please wait. How much did you say the Dark Order was worth? Hearing this, Wang Yu hurriedly put away the Dark Order and turned around. He saw a handsome-looking elven assassin walking over from the side. Before Wang Yu could reply, Demon King Fungus suddenly shouted, Heaven's secrets, it's you again, you bastard. Why do you have to make things difficult for our thousand-wave temple? Heaven's secrets sneered. You ugly monster, you don't follow the rules and morals just because you're a woman. You want to blame us for making things difficult for you? Don't you have any shame? Bosom friend, although the secret pavilion was not necessarily a good organization, Heaven's Secret's words had struck a chord in Wang Yu's heart. At this moment, Wang Yu looked at Heaven's Secrets with a look of approval, as if he regretted not having met Heaven's Secrets earlier. TSK. Demon King Fungus sneered. What? This Dark Order is something that our thousand-wave temple painstakingly obtained. We're just returning it to its rightful owner. How are you breaking the rules? In response to Demon King Fungus's rebuttal, Heaven's Secrets pointed at Wang Yu and said calmly, City Lord Tai is very busy every day. He came all the way here to deliver the token to you. Not only did you not fulfill your promise, but you even tried to use your theory to make City Lord Tai come here for nothing. How despicable! Chapter 11:26. Wang Yu was speechless when he heard Secret Seer's words. No wonder this brat spoke so pompously. He had an ulterior motive. However, this was fine. Wang Yu had been reluctant to hand over the Darkness Decree to the Demon King Fungus. Now that Secret Seer was here to stir things up, Wang Yu was secretly delighted. After all, no matter how unreasonable the Demon King Fungus was, the one causing trouble was Secret Seer. She couldn't possibly vent her anger on Hitaki, could she? Wang Yu was more than happy to watch them fight. In any case, no matter what the outcome was, he would not be the one to suffer. What do you mean? Sure enough, when Secret Seer interfered, the Demon King Fungus's originally green face almost turned dark green. She pointed at Secret Seer, so angry that she was speechless. Secret Seer smiled and said, What else can it mean? The highest bidder wins. It's not like you don't have money. Are you trying to save it for milk? As he spoke, Secret Seer deliberately swept a glance at the chests of the thousand-wave temple players, a playful expression on his face. Secret Seer's mouth was quite vicious. The Demon King Fungus dressed like a child and recruited a group of such subordinate. She indeed looked like a child who lacked love in his childhood. His words struck at the Demon King Fungus's heart. The Demon King Fungus also seemed to care about others attacking it. When she heard Secret Seer's words, she jumped up and down like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She cursed, Motherf *cur. Your whole family is dead. This is getting more and more interesting. Wang Yu crossed his arms and watched the two bickering players with interest, a look of gossip on his face. "Humph." Secret Seer sneered disapprovingly and said, "How about it, City Lord Iron? 3,000 gold is very sincere, right?" Not bad." Wang Yu rubbed his chin and nodded. In any case, the darkness decree did not belong to him. Selling it for 3,000 gold was as good as picking it up from the ground. "Then how about selling it to me?" Secret Seer asked. Well, Wang Yu hesitated for a moment. Hataki had given him a 50-50 chance of getting the darkness decree. If he sold the darkness decree just like that, Hataki would most likely be in trouble again. Wang Yu didn't care how the two of them bickered, but it wasn't good to involve innocent people. However, it was clear that Demon King Fungus had overestimated Hataki's position in Wang Yu's heart. Just as Wang Yu was feeling troubled, Demon King Fungus pointed at Wang Yu and cursed, "You dare?" Well, it would have been better if the Devil King Fungus didn't say this. Once it said this, Wang Yu's temper also rose. To move unhindered for decades, Wang Yu had never been afraid of anyone. How could he let a little brat threaten him? Wasn't it just a deduction of his salary and losing his job? Everyone in Chuanjian was overflowing with wealth, and they didn't mind supporting one more person. Why wouldn't I dare? Wang Yu snorted coldly and tossed the darkness decree to Secret Seer. Secret Seer did not expect Wang Yu to be so straightforward. After catching the darkness decree, his expression froze. Then, he took out a pouch of money and handed it to Wang Yu. At this moment, a white light flashed, and Unfathomable appeared at the resurrection point. Seeing the darkness decree in Secret Seer's hand, Unfathomable rushed over in a panic and said, "Boss, you can't take this." The secret of heaven was stunned when he heard this. Before he could react, he saw the Devil King Fungus reveal a treacherous smile. Then, he took out a dark decree that was exactly the same as the one in the secret of heaven's hand and threw it at the secret of heaven's feet. Bang! The darkness decree landed on the ground, and a cloud of black fog rose. At the same time, the darkness decree in Secret Seer's hand cracked. Immediately after, the space around Secret Seer distorted. Secret Seer, Unfathomable, who had rushed over to grab Secret Seer's wrist, Wang Yu, who was taking Secret Seer's money pouch, and Hataki, who was leaning close to Wang Yu, split apart. The space under their feet cracked at the same time. Wang Yu reacted quickly and instinctively wanted to jump away. However, the distorted space was like a huge hand grabbing onto Wang Yu. Wang Yu, who had already jumped up, was directly dragged to the ground. Together with the other three, they were sucked into the space vortex and disappeared before everyone's eyes. F***CK. You scared me. How long are you going to hide? You're clearly an assassin, and yet you're hiding so far back. No wonder you're called Rat. Seeing the four of them disappear, the Devil King Fungus wiped off his cold sweat and cursed at the back of the crowd not far away. You've worked hard. Just at this moment, an assassin appeared behind the crowd of spectators. With a face full of smiles, he said, "You don't know, but that Iron Bull is very strange. Even if you hide yourself, he still knows where you are." The assassin was short and had a wretched smile. His eyes were shining, and his dagger was sheathed at his waist. If Wang Yu had not disappeared, he would definitely have recognized this assassin. This kid was the boss of the 12 constellations, Zishu. T. He's still locked up now. Demon King Fungus looked at the place where Wang Yu disappeared and angrily gave him the middle finger. Then he asked Rat, "Where's my brother?" "He's here. The boss said that you'll be the first to get credit for this," Zishu said with a smile. "That kid got lucky. I spent so much money on the Dark Decree, but he used it." "Tch, Demon King Fungus said disdainfully. "That's a level 80 dungeon. With just the few of them, they probably won't be able to get out in this lifetime." Sigh. Rat sighed. "Young man, your brother thought the same way back then. So you know what happened to him?" I'll be satisfied if this dungeon can lock that guy up for 2 days, let alone a lifetime. Fine, fine, fine. Look at you, you'll scare yourself to death again. Demon King Fungus once again curled his lips in disdain. The space distorted in an instant. Wang Yu and the others felt the scene in front of them change, and they arrived at an unfamiliar place. At the same time, the 4 of them received a system notification. You have discovered the evil demon Dominic's lair. Challenge. Obtained 5,000 EXP. System notification. You have accepted the dungeon quest, Fall of Dominic. Challenge. Quest level, S. Mission Introduction. The evil dragon Dominic is an outstanding descendant of the dragon tribe. Due to his obsession with dark magic and the power of eternal life, Dominic abandoned the pride of the dragon tribe and turned himself into an undead. He then became a disciple of the Great Elder under the 7th Apostle of the Dark Faction, the Dark Church's representative, Great Necromancer Turin, to learn undead magic. The evil dragon Dominic, who is proficient in both dragon and undead magic, has unfathomable strength. It is said that the disappearance of the Great Necromancer Turin is related to Dominic. Quest requirement: kill the evil dragon Dominic 0-1. Quest hint: Dominic is proficient in undead magic and has an almost immortal body. Note: this dungeon is a challenge. Please find more helpers and act within your capabilities. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences. If it affects your gaming experience, the game company reserves the right to explain. Chapter 11:27. This dungeon is a little strange. Wang Yu could not help but feel confused when he saw the sudden system notification. In fact, this dungeon and quest all had a normal background plot. What made Wang Yu feel strange was the system notification at the end. Playing a game and fighting a dungeon was a perfectly reasonable thing to do, but the last sentence was really confusing. Why would a dungeon affect the game experience? Could there be some content that was not suitable for children? Wang Yu was especially puzzled by the sentence, "The game company reserves the final right to explain." It was not like Wang Yu had never seen such a sentence before. It usually appeared after a system update or a statement from the game company. As long as this sentence appeared, it meant that there might be legal consequences. For example, players' game assets would be lost due to unknown reasons due to an update. After all, it was normal for players to die and lose equipment or have their equipment stolen by a boss. Only losing data due to a system update would be considered unknown reasons. Wasn't it just a dungeon? Why did it have to say something like that? Could it be that this boss had the ability to change the game's data? That was too King ridiculous. No matter how powerful an NPC was, it couldn't open a modifier for itself. Wouldn't that be like Skynet in Terminator? As he pondered, Wang Yu frowned and looked at Heaven's Secret and the others. However, Heaven's Secret seemed to be dumbfounded as he muttered to himself, What the *CK? It's actually Dominic's challenge mode." Hataki's expression was the same as Heaven's Secret's. He seemed to be filled with fear for this dungeon. Heaven's Secret cried out in despair, "I deliberately killed myself to get here, but I'm still a step too late. This is fate." Seeing their reactions, Wang Yu was even more confused. After all, no matter how strong Wang Yu was, his knowledge of the game could only be described as lacking. Naturally, he would not be like the others who knew the game like the back of their hand. Wang Yu was speechless. He asked Heaven's Secret curiously, "What kind of dungeon is this? City Lord Tai doesn't know about this challenge?" Hearing Wang Yu's question, Heaven's Secret and the others couldn't help but be taken aback. In their minds, as the Castellan of Yu Huiqing and a famous expert, Wang Yu should have a more thorough understanding of the game than anyone else. They didn't expect that he didn't even know about Dominic's challenge. "I don't know," Wang Yu said frankly, "but from your expressions this dungeon seems quite scary." "Scary?" Seeing Heaven's Secrets curled his lips and said with lingering fear, "It's more than terrifying. It's simply terrifying. What do you mean? Wang Yu asked shamelessly. Sigh. Secret Insight sighed and shook his head. This isn't a regular dungeon, but a guild challenge dungeon. It's the kind of dungeon that's famous for having no return. In the setting of Rebirth, the Instance Dungeons challenge mode was independent of the other modes. The specific way to differentiate them was not difficult. Regular Instance Dungeons were based on the game's history and were developed to allow players to review the game's plot. Challenge mode, on the other hand, required players to challenge powerful NPCs in the game and personally write the plot. For example, Dominic was one of the most powerful NPCs in the Dark faction. He had never been defeated, so players could only kill him by challenging him. Rather than calling it a dungeon, it was more like an additional side quest, similar to the quest that Wang Yu had done in the past. However, the quest to open a dungeon was also based on the background story, while the challenge mode required players to use their actions to push the plot forward and kill such an important NPC. Once Dominic was killed, the dungeon would become a regular dungeon. Of course, if that was all, a mere challenge mode wouldn't have scared Secret Insight and the others to this extent. The three of them were afraid because of the setting of the challenge mode. Anyone who liked to play games would know that a dungeon was an independent mirror space that was created based on the main world and targeted at a certain person or team. However, in the challenge mode, players would not be in the mirror space, but the real main world. Because of this, the challenge mode didn't have the option to exit the dungeon. Moreover, there would be a resurrection point in the dungeon space for challengers to revive. Obviously, the system meant that players would never be able to leave the dungeon space as long as they did not clear it. Back during the closed beta, Dominic's challenge mode had been accidentally unlocked by someone. At that time, everyone's average level was higher than it was now, and it was an entire guild that entered the dungeon. However, after that guild entered the dungeon, no one saw them in the game again. It was not until many days later, when there were many posts of complaints on the forum, that everyone knew what this Dominic was. In the end, no one knew how the game company resolved the issue, but all the closed beta players at that time knew that there was a one-way dungeon. Even after the closed beta ended and the game went into open beta, this terrifying legend was still being discussed enthusiastically on the forum. Although God's Secret, Hataki's 50%, and the others had never participated in the closed beta, as veteran players, they knew a thing or two about the gossip in the game. One had to know that an entire guild had been swallowed by this dungeon space, and every player was an expert close to level 60. Even they did not make it out alive, so there was no hope for them to return. If they could not beat the dungeon space and could not leave, they would probably have to spend the rest of their gaming lives in this dungeon space. Thinking of this, Secret Insight's face revealed a look of despair again. After Secret Insight finished speaking, Wang Yu stroked his chin and nodded thoughtfully. He asked Secret Insight, "Since you knew this would happen, why did you still snatch that dark decree?" F***CK. It would have been better if Wang Yu did not mention this, but the moment he did, Secret Insight immediately said gloomily, "If I knew that this thing would open a dungeon space like this, I wouldn't have snatched it even if you beat me to death." In the end, at this point, Secret Insight's face turned red. "It's all because of those girls from Thousand Wave Temple. They said that there was something good there." "No way." Hataki 50% said doubtfully, "We didn't say anything when we were looking for this thing." "Don't you know that there's a profession called undercover?" Secret Insight asked. Hataki 50%. Chapter 11:28. Using a spy to set up a trap was a very simple tactic. Having hung around Wuji for so long, Wang Yu was no stranger to this sort of behavior. Clearly, Thousand Wave Hall knew that there was a spy from the secret pavilion in their guild. That was why they did this. Perhaps. With Wang Yu's reminder, Inside Heaven's Secrets nodded his head gloomily. It was such an obvious trap. If he still couldn't see through inside heaven's secrets, he would be an idiot. However, Unfathomable said, City Lord Tai's words make sense, but I don't understand. If they wanted to set up a trap for the secret pavilion, they would have given me the dark order from the start. Why did they have to run? You'll have to ask the person involved. Wang Yu thought for a moment. Then, he and the secret pavilion's two fellows turned to look at Hataki 50%. Seeing everyone looking at him, Hataki 50% was stunned. He hurriedly waved his hands and said, I don't know, you don't know? Secret Seer asked with an unfriendly expression. You're from Thousand Wave Hall. How could you not know? Flustered, Hataki 50% said, when your people surrounded us, the boss gave me that thing and had my sisters cover me. I don't know anything else. Seeing Hataki 50%'s expression, Wang Yu didn't think he was lying. Hence, he asked, then why did you go to Yuhuiqing? At the time, we were surrounded near the setting sun valley. Our boss told me to run to Twilight City. At the time, I was afraid that the people from the secret pavilion would snatch the Dark Edict, so I gave it to you, Hataki Wu Wu Kai replied. Oh! Secret Seer rubbed his chin thoughtfully when he heard Hataki 50%'s words. On the other hand, Wang Yu's heart skipped a beat. Damn! What the F***ck, getting someone to deliver the item to Wang Yu from across the main city, this was obviously targeting Wang Yu himself. Unfathomable also noticed something amiss. Puzzled, he asked, could it be that Thousand Wave Hall's people are targeting City Lord Tai? That doesn't make sense. Heaven's Secrets also said in confusion, Yuhuiqing and Salat are separated by a faction, and there is no interaction between the two main cities. How could City Lord Tai be targeted by Thousand Wave Hall? No. Hearing this, Wang Yu said, there must be someone in the Thousand Wave Hall who knows me. Not only that, but he is very familiar with my personality and knows my habits like the back of his hand. This is definitely not a random guess. From Hataki's words, it was not difficult to infer that Wang Yu was tricked into a place of no return. It was definitely premeditated. Setting Sun Valley was an advanced leveling area. Ordinary players would not stroll around there. If Yuhuiqing's players appeared there, it would definitely raise suspicions. However, it was a player from a neighboring main city who was being chased there. Everything seemed reasonable. Moreover, the other party had predicted that not only would Wang Yu not stand by and watch Hataki 50% fight, but he would also deliver the Darkness Token to Salat City. Clearly, the other party had direct contact with Wang Yu and understood Wang Yu's personality. Moreover, Hataki 50% had appeared when Wang Yu was leveling up. It was clear that the other party had a clear understanding of Wang Yu's movements in the game. Apart from this, even Secret Seer's interference seemed to be within the other party's expectations. His strategy of anticipating the enemy's moves and linking them together seemed simple, but he was leading his target by the nose step by step. In Wang Yu's long time playing the game, Wuji was the only one who could use such underhanded methods. Moreover, Wuji and Wang Yu had been together for so long that he understood Wang Yu's personality and habits very well. Thinking about it carefully, it was extremely terrifying. That's impossible. Is Wuji so bored that he would actually trick me? At this thought, Wang Yu shook his head violently, throwing out this unreliable deduction. Wang Yu absolutely trusted Wuji. After all, Wang Yu understood Wuji as well as Wuji understood him. Doing this would not benefit Wuji at all. Putting aside their relationship, even if Wang Yu was a passerby, Wuji would not use his brain on Wang Yu. Who was it and why? For a moment, Wang Yu was even more conflicted. Secret Seer exclaimed gloomily, F***ck. If that's the case, then they're not targeting us. We've been tricked. No, I have to write the word injustice on the wall to express my feelings. Tricked? Wang Yu said calmly. That can't be. It's obvious that the other party is targeting you as well. Targeting us? Secret Seer asked. Why do you say that? Wang Yu said calmly, because before you came to the resurrection point, I had the Dark Order in my hands. If the Thousand-Wave Temple was only targeting me, they would have made their move then. Why would they wait for you to come and mess things up? It looks like they predicted that you would come, so they specifically waited for us to make our deal. They wanted to catch both of us in one fell swoop. Yes. That's it. Just as Wang Yu finished speaking, Secret Seer suddenly exclaimed, as if he had thought of something. I met a few people on the way to the resurrection point. One of them also said something along the lines of catching both of us in one fell swoop. Wang Yu asked. Who was it? I didn't see it clearly, but the person I fought wasn't weak. He had a curly mustache, Secret Seer said. Mustache? Wang Yu frowned thoughtfully. He seemed to have seen such a person somewhere before. Then what did they say? Secret Seer also asked. Secret Seer said, I didn't understand the specifics, but they roughly said that as long as you have the Dark Order in your hands, you'll definitely be able to catch all of them in one fell swoop. At that time, there were many of them, and they were all quite skilled. When I saw that I couldn't beat them, I decided to commit suicide. However, I was still too late. My condolences, Wang Yu consoled Secret Seer sympathetically, then said, We didn't know each other before, but now their target is you and me. What does this mean? What does it mean? Secret Seer stood up and pointed at Hataki. Why don't you just ask her? After saying that, Secret Seer took out his dagger and walked up to Hataki with an unfriendly expression. He said fiercely, Tell me, what are you ugly, black-hearted people up to? Do you see the resurrection point over there? I'm bored anyway, so I don't mind killing you for fun. Seeing this, Hataki 5-5 Open said in horror, I don't know. I'm just a normal player in the guild responsible for sweeping the floor. I do whatever the boss tells me to do. I don't have the right to know her secrets. Sweeping players were a type of professional players, slightly higher than gold collectors. Their main job was to lure monsters, then transport the equipment obtained by other players to the city and bring back potions for the other players in the party. This way, they could reduce the time that players had to travel back and forth to level up, increasing the efficiency of leveling up. The characteristics of sweeping players were also very obvious. They were weak and fast. In order to lure monsters, they had to be long-range classes, and most of them were archers. Hataki's 50-50 chance was completely in line with the characteristics of sweeping players. Wang Yu had also been a gold collector before, so he knew that these low-level professional players had a tough life. When he saw Hataki's 50-50 chance and remembered how the boss had scolded her in the city, Wang Yu couldn't help but feel that they were both in the same boat. All right, don't force her. How could she know? Wang Yu waved his hand and stopped Secret Seer. Secret Seer asked in disbelief, City Lord Tai, she's the culprit who got us into this place. You believe her? It's not a question of whether I believe her or not. Wang Yu said, You also know that there's no way out of this place. If she knew everything, she wouldn't have been locked up with us. Secret Seer was stunned when he heard that, and then he put away his dagger. Indeed, everyone played games for fun. Being locked up in this dungeon was equivalent to being imprisoned for life. There was no fun in that. Any normal person would not make such a huge sacrifice. As for professional players, it was even more impossible. The game was a world where people could get rich at any time. Although the salary of sweeping players wasn't high, it was still a stable income. If one day they managed to get a godly item, they would become rich. Naturally, they wouldn't kill the goose that laid the golden eggs for the sake of a small profit. Hataki's eyes were filled with gratitude when she saw that Wang Yu chose to believe her. She whispered, Brother Iron Ox, although I don't know what the boss means, I don't think they're targeting you. Not attacking Hataki didn't mean that he had nothing against her. Secret Seer was immediately displeased when he heard that. He curled his lips and said, "That's interesting. If they weren't targeting us, they would have locked us up. If they didn't want to see us, they could have just left. Why would they use such a method to imprison us? Are you still trying to clear your master's name at a time like this?" "I didn't." Hataki resisted weakly and lowered her head. When Wang Yu heard their words, his eyes suddenly lit up. Little Five should be right. The Demon King fungus doesn't seem to be targeting us. Then why? Secret Seer was dumbfounded. If they weren't targeting them, they would be sentenced to life imprisonment. If they were targeting them, wouldn't they be looking for a GM to ban their accounts? Wang Yu said calmly, "I'm guessing they're targeting others. They're afraid that we'll cause trouble, so they locked us up." "Big brother, we're in different camps. Do we have any common acquaintances?" Secret Seer asked. Wang Yu said, "I don't know how many people you know, but I'm only familiar with Chuanjin's group." "I'm not familiar with the gods of Chuanjin either." Secret Seer muttered, "Why do you have to lock me up?" Wang Yu thought about it and said, "Locking you up should be a preventive measure." Chapter 11:29. Piracy Detected. Wang Yu knew better than anyone what kind of person Chuanjin was. These fellows believed that the enemy of their enemy was their comrade. As long as they had a common enemy, let alone a stranger, even an enemy like Dugu Jiuqiang could be pulled into their trenches. It was obvious that the other side understood Chuanjin's style quite well. In fact, they were quite afraid of Chuanjin's unscrupulous attempts to rope in comrades in arms. In Salat City, the secret pavilion was the sole power. If there weren't any conflicts of interest, they wouldn't bother with a small guild like Thousand Wave Temple. Yet, the other side had still resolutely locked Heaven's secret in. It was clear just how much of a shadow Chuanjin had left in their hearts. Needless to say, Wang Yu himself was even more impressive. Although it was a bit strange to boast that he could solo 10,000, his strength was publicly acknowledged. In the game, experts weren't limited to how many players of the same level they could fight, but how many opponents they could pin down. A top-tier expert like Chuanjin could pin down several dozen ordinary players with ease, let alone Wang Yu. Not only was Wang Yu strong, but he could also run like a rabbit. Not only did he know Qinggong, but he could also fly. He was like a slippery loach. If he wanted to, nobody could catch him. Such an expert could pin down 1,000 players without a problem. Over 1,000 players was not a small number. Let alone an ordinary group fight, even an ordinary guild fight would only have over 1,000 players. With Wang Yu's existence, she would be able to control the flow of the battle. Hence, unless these two factors were removed, the other side definitely wouldn't dare to attack Chuanjin. With how big the game was, there were plenty of people who could confidently guarantee that they could hold down the secret pavilion. However, not a single one could guarantee that they could pin down Wang Yu. In order to get rid of these two unstable factors, the only way was to trap Wang Yu and All-Seeing Heaven's secret in a special scenario, just like what they were doing now. Of course, while the other party's actions might seem safe, taking the initiative to strike against the secret pavilion would also expose Thousand Wave Hall. However, without an unstable factor like Wang Yu and the secret pavilion, it did not matter if they exposed themselves. After all, once they took action, they would be exposed sooner or later. Holy shit! What a treacherous fellow! After hearing Wang Yu's explanation, Heavenly Secret's insight and Heavenly Secret's unfathomable couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Then, they asked Wang Yu in shock, "City Lord Tai, just who is this powerful enemy?" Since they were so cunning and dared to attack Chuanjin, Chuanjin's enemies were probably not ordinary people. Although there were many players in the game, only a small portion of the experts were expert. Filtering enemies from a small portion of the players was not a large range. Unexpectedly, Wang Yu shook his head and said, "Chuanjin has so many enemies, I don't know." F***ck. When the two heard this, they instantly fell apart. As expected of the infamous Chuanjian. As expected, they had enemies all over the world. They had so many experts that they couldn't even count them. What was a god? This was a god. Immediately after, Wang Yu said, "Don't worry about who the enemy is. Our main task now is to clear the dungeon. Otherwise, those guys from Chuanjian will be in danger." Clear the dungeon? Heavenly Secrets Insight and Heavenly Secrets were stunned once more. With just 4 people, including a basically negligible floor-sweeping player, they wanted to clear a dungeon that even the big guilds could not clear? It seemed that this man was the true god of Chuanjian. Yu Huiqing, Han's Tavern. Taverns had always been a place frequented by couples in the game. After all, judging from the name, taverns were the closest places to hotels. Bringing a girl to drink was also a very metaphorical hint. For the purpose of educating people, Uncle Nyo did not encourage girls to drink with others. After all, people's hearts were complicated, and it was not uncommon to see people drugging alcohol. If it was voluntary, then Uncle Nyo did not say anything. Moreover, there was no lack of lecherous scum like Wuji in the tavern. As usual, Wuji inherited the arrogant and despotic style of Chuanjian. He sat in the most conspicuous spot in the tavern, holding a cheap glass of wine, and his eyes swept over the female players who came and went without a care. The saying, "the drunkard has ulterior motives," was used to describe people like Wuji. After all, this was the system's shop. If you wanted a 10-cent bottle of wine, you could sit from morning to night. As long as you did not finish it, the boss would not care. Everyone had a bit of anger. Their female companion was being stared at like a hoodlum, and anyone would be unhappy. However, whenever someone tried to teach Wuji a lesson, the eye-catching yin-yang fish emblem on Wuji's chest would cause those who tried to show their faces in front of Wuji to back off. The yin-yang fish represented Chuanjian. The priest sitting in front of them was obviously the supreme leader of Chuanjian. In Yu Huiqing, this represented a taboo. Wuji was watching the passing girls with relish. From time to time, he would give the girls marks in his heart. However, at this moment, Wuji suddenly grabbed the magic staff in his hand. He raised it slightly and a white light enveloped it. At the same time, an assassin appeared behind Wuji and stabbed a dagger into Wuji's back. Bang! With a muffled sound, the dagger pierced Wuji's body. The assassin felt as though he had hit a wall and was pushed back 2 steps. Wuji, on the other hand, did not move at all. At that moment, Wuji received a notification: "You have been attacked. Now you have a no name. Are you afraid that I will know who you are?" Wuji mumbled and turned his head. As expected, the assassin had a mask on his face, as if he was trying to hide his identity on purpose. At this moment, the assassin looked at Wuji in shock and said, "It's the Holy Light Shield. How did you know I was behind you?" Humph humph. Wuji pointed to the chairs around his table and sneered, "Big brother, the number of people who want to kill me is more than the number of people you've ever met. Do you think I'll be unguarded sitting here?" The assassin looked at the chair that Wuji had kicked over and was speechless. Then, he said disdainfully, "Looks like you're quite careful. But so what? You're just a priest. I can easily kill you." Ha ha. Wuji smiled and raised the wine glass in his hand. He looked at the assassin through the glass and said, "Violence can't solve problems. Believe it or not, you can't even touch me." Bullsh *T. Hearing Wuji's words, the assassin seemed to have been greatly insulted. With a furious roar, he raised his dagger and pounced at Wuji again. The corner of Wuji's mouth curled into a smile. With a flick of his hand, the wine glass flew out. Seeing that Wuji had actually thrown the wine glass at him, the assassin subconsciously waved his hand and smashed the wine glass with his dagger. Before the assassin could reach Wuji, the owner of the tavern had teleported at an absolute speed and hugged the assassin. With a bitter face, he said, "Sir, this is a small business. You can't do this." The assassin was immediately dumbfounded. Chapter 1130. The tavern owner was quite good at pestering people. By the time the assassin paid up and walked out of the tavern, Wuji was long gone. F***ck. The assassin looked around, cursed angrily, and hid himself angrily. Seeing the assassin disappear, Wuji, who was hiding on the rooftop, rubbed his nose and sent a message in the guild channel. Everyone be careful, I just encountered an assassin. It seems like someone is trying to assassinate us. TSK. Everyone was quite disdainful of Wuji's message. They mocked him. With that mocking face of yours, it's only natural for me to give you a brick. What's there to be surprised about? Wuji replied, Stop messing around, it's true. That kid even hid his identity. He's definitely not targeting me. Just as everyone was about to mock Wuji again, To Place One's Pride suddenly said, F***ck me, Wuji is right, I was F***king killed. Yeah. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked when they saw the news about Sen Pride. Wuji was famous for making enemies. It was reasonable for him to be stabbed in the back. To Place One's Pride may be a little arrogant, but compared to the bad apples of Chuanjin, he was definitely harmless. Even he was killed. It was obvious that someone was targeting Chuanjin. Who did it? Everyone asked after recovering from their shock. I don't know. To Place One's Pride said in embarrassment, I saw a young lady being bullied. I wanted to be a hero and save the damsel in distress, but I was strangely stabbed to death from behind. Hero and save the damsel in distress? Everyone was speechless. It wasn't like they could do that in the game. Everyone's desires were basically focused on the best equipment and items. Bullying a young lady for no reason was obviously a trap. Even Wang Yu, who was a pure noob in the game, wouldn't take the initiative to interfere when she saw this kind of thing when she was out strolling. There was no law in the game at all. The world was much more treacherous than the real world. To Place One's Pride, this brat, he really thought of himself as a hero. His mind was filled with unrealistic fantasies. Wuji lamented his misfortune and asked angrily, Who the hell taught you all this nonsense? Brother Chun. To Place One's Pride looked aggrieved. Chun Xiang was speechless. He covered his face and sighed. Naughty brat, you're such an embarrassment. Hurry up and leave the group. Just as everyone was lecturing To Place One's Pride, another message suddenly flashed in the channel. I was also killed. Everyone hurriedly took a closer look at the message. The person who had sent the message was Linglong Meng. At that moment, the young lady seemed to be in a dream and had a completely confused look on her face. How did you die? Seeing Exquisite Dream's message, everyone hurriedly asked. Exquisite Dream said, I was strolling around the trade street and saw a small stall selling accessories. So, I went over to look for treasures. Then, I mysteriously died. Fine, women were women after all. No matter where they went, they couldn't change their habit of looking for treasures. It seemed like those assassins had been watching her for a long time. Chop off your hand! While everyone was criticizing Exquisite Dream, they subconsciously looked around their surroundings. Not long after, Ming Jian Daoshua also sent a message. I was ambushed. I didn't manage to escape. What happened to you? I went to collect materials from Ingji. On the way back, I was blocked by someone. F***ck. It wasn't just Wuji's group of 4. Soon after, the rest of Chuanjin's group were also ambushed or assassinated. It was just that with the previous few people as an example, everyone was already on their guard. That was why the assassins didn't succeed. However, in this short period of time, the members of Chuanjin's group were ambushed one after another. Moreover, 3 of them were killed. For a moment, the members of Chuanjin's group could not help but feel anxious. Fortunately, the members of Chuanjin's group had rich experience in being ambushed. They knew that in this situation, staying still was the safest. Therefore, the first thing they did after the assassination was to return to the guild office. Is everyone here yet? in the guild office of Chuanjin's group, Wuji looked around and asked, "It seems like Uncle Nyo isn't here yet." To place one's pride raised his hand. "That's right. When we were ambushed just now, I didn't see Old Cow say anything." Hearing To Place One's Pride's words, the others suddenly came to a realization. Mingdu curled his lips and said, "TCH, Old Cow doesn't need you guys to worry about him. Who the F***ck would dare to find trouble with Old Cow?" "That's true." Everyone nodded. However, Wuji frowned and said, "If anyone is looking for trouble with him, he should at least say something, right? Why is it so quiet today? Is he not online?" As he said that, Wuji opened his friends list and saw Wang Yu's name brightly lit up. Why isn't he talking when he's online? Puzzled, Wuji sent a message over. "Old Cow, come to the meeting." However, the system replied very considerately, "Sorry, the user you have dialed is not in the service area." "Not in the service area?" Seeing this, Wuji frowned. Then, he said to everyone, "Old Cow seems to be doing a mission. Since that's the case, let's discuss among ourselves. Anyway, he doesn't need us to worry about him." That's right, that's right," the others echoed. It would be great if they all went to kill Old Cow. Everyone in Chuanjin had a superstitious belief in Wang Yu's strength. If these assassins dared to launch a sneak attack on Wang Yu, it was guaranteed that none of them would return alive. Getting back to the main topic, Chun Xiang first asked Wuji, "Wuji, tell me, what's going on this time?" Wuji shook his head and said, "I'm not sure about this, but I'm sure that the opponent we encountered this time is not ordinary. He actually took the initiative right from the start. It's obvious that he has been planning this for a long time. From the endless methods of the assassins, it was not difficult to tell that every assassination was specially planned according to each person's personality in Chuanjin. From this, it could be seen that the other party had a good understanding of the temperament of the people in Chuanjin. Not only did the enemy know himself and the enemy, but he also deliberately hid himself, creating a situation where the enemy was in the dark while they were out in the open. Be it in the game or in reality, under normal circumstances, when two parties were enemies, the one in the dark would always have the initiative. Planning for a long time? Everyone said blankly, "Have we offended anyone recently?" Wuji continued shaking his head. "No, but looking at the opponent's methods, it should be an old opponent. Moreover, it's an old and cunning one." "Even older than you?" As expected of a group of frivolous fellows. At this time, they still had the mood to mock each other. Wuji nodded. "About the same." When everyone heard this, they were immediately speechless. To be able to be on par with a fellow like Wuji who was full of evil tricks, wouldn't this person be a professional strategist? Ordinary players and professional experts had always been clearly separated, and they minded their own business. No matter how much fun Chuanjin usually made, they could not afford to offend those elusive fellows. Of course, if the opponent was really a professional expert, then it would be a little tricky. Chapter 1131. In terms of individual strength, the members of Chuanjin were all extraordinary. Whether it was their equipment or level, they were all top-notch. They weren't too far off from professional players. However, what made professional players terrifying wasn't just their individual skills. As a professional player, whether it was their mechanics, awareness, or strategic vision, they were all well-rounded. In comparison, the members of Chuanjin were only considered professional at killing and stealing bosses. The most terrifying thing about professional players was their immersion in PvP, which was something that ordinary players couldn't hope to achieve. Professional players knew the skills of every class in the game like the back of their hand. How to maximize the effects of their skills through teamwork and what tactics to use to maximize the team's combat strength were topics that they studied every day. After all, professional players' time was limited. Things like equipment and items would be delivered to them. In comparison, ordinary players would spend most of their time gathering materials and equipment in the same amount of time. Apart from those who were crazy about PvP, they avoided PvP as much as possible. There was no need to deliberately study PvP strategies. Some players who were addicted to PvE didn't even know how to PvP. Although the members of Chuanjin had rich PvP experience, that was just experience. Compared to professional players, they were far from professional. If the opponent was really a professional player, things wouldn't be so simple. Enough. Don't think too much. Seeing that everyone was a little uneasy, Wuji said, "Don't worry about whether he's a professional player or not. We can't just sit here and wait for death." "Then what should we do next?" Everyone looked at Wuji and asked. "It's simple," Wuji said calmly. "We're too passive now, so the first thing we need to do is to turn passivity into initiative. We can do this." Yu Huiqing and Wuji had already fought with their opponents. In the dungeon, Wang Yu had also started with Heaven's Secret and the others. Originally, Dominic's Fallen was a famous guild dungeon. Heaven's Secret didn't even think about it when the four of them wanted to clear this dungeon. However, since everyone was already locked up and they had nothing to do, they couldn't possibly spend money to buy a card to sit in the game, right? At the very least, it would give them something to do. Dominic's lair was a cave. As a giant dragon, Dominic's lair was naturally quite large. Blue flames drifted back and forth in the cave, rendering the entire place abnormally eerie. This kind of atmosphere would make a normal man's scalp go numb, let alone Hataki. Wang Yu took the lead while Hataki followed closely behind Wang Yu. Seer and Unfathomable were at the very back, not daring to stray too far from Wang Yu. If this were an ordinary dungeon, there would definitely be a lot of small monsters wandering around. However, Dominic's lair was lifeless. Not even a single bone could be seen, let alone small monsters. Just like that, the four of them walked for a full 5 minutes before they saw a building that looked like a main city. The walls of the main city were pitch black, giving off an unusually sturdy feeling. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't hard to discover that the walls were actually made of skeletons. As an archer, Hataki realized for the first time that having good eyesight wasn't necessarily a good thing. Only the heavens knew what the game designers were up to. They even made a restricted setting in the game. The main gate of the main city was tightly shut. The words, "City of the Undead," were written directly above the gate. 2 tall guards stood on both sides of the gate, looking extremely ferocious. Wang Yu and the others casually cast their detection spells on the 2 guards, and the guards' stats appeared before their eyes. Undead Lord Husmer, LV 70, Dark Gold Boss, Elite, HP, 800000 MP, 200000 skills. Undead Harvest, Undead Blast, Warrior Proficiency Innate Skill, Live and Die Together Background Introduction. During his life, he was the supreme ruler of the reborn continent's 6th empire. He was also a powerful warrior. When the darkness descended, he sought the power of the undead and joined the Hell Legion. During the Apocalypse War, he was beheaded by the god of war. As an expert who once stood at the peak of the human profession, Husmer's body contained great power. After he died in battle, his body was resurrected by the necromancer Tyren as a servant. Undead Witch Lord Buzzrook LV 70, Dark Gold Boss, Elite, HP, 200000 MP, 800000 skills. Undead Him, Summon of the Undead, Witchcraft Proficiency Innate Abilities, Live and Die Together Background Introduction. During his life, he was the Marshal of the Reborn Continent's 6th Empire. He was also a powerful witchcraft master. When the darkness descended, he sought the power of the undead and joined the Hell Legion with his brother. During the Apocalypse War, he was shot through the heart by a demon hunter and died. As an expert who once stood at the peak of the human profession, Buzzrook's body contained great power. After he died in battle, His body was resurrected by the necromancer Tyren as a servant. F***CK 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 F***CK. After seeing the attributes of the two guards, God's Secret's hair stood on end. No wonder this instant's dungeon was said to be a one-way trip. Even the guards at the entrance were two dark gold bosses. How the hell were they supposed to fight? Wouldn't they just be throwing their lives away? Thinking of this, God's Secret tugged on Wang Yu's shirt and whispered, "City Lord Tai, let's go back." "Go back? Why do we have to go back?" Wang Yu asked in confusion. God's Secret pointed at the two bosses and said anxiously, "You've seen the attributes of these two things. We can't beat them, so there's no need to die here." If the guards were normal monsters, God's Secret might have given it a try. However, the two bosses standing at the entrance were quite intimidating. Although dying in challenge mode would only cost 1% EXP, dying in an instance dungeon would still damage equipment. If you lost all your levels, you could level up again, but if your equipment was destroyed, it would be gone forever. How could Wang Yu not know what God's Secret was thinking? He smiled and said, "You're just afraid of losing your equipment. Anyway, if we can't beat this instance dungeon, we can't leave. What's the use of your equipment?" This. God's Secret's face turned red. "One day, the players outside will have the ability to clear this instance dungeon, hee." Wang Yu laughed coldly. "When that day comes, your equipment will be worthless and your guild will belong to someone else. You might as well die." God's Secret was speechless. He sighed and said, "Alright then, it's hard to predict. Let's start." Chapter 1132. Luring Monsters? Are you an archer? Wang Yu looked at Unpredictable with interest. Only then did he remember that everyone was at the archer's resurrection point. Unpredictable's suicide actually brought him back to the archer's resurrection point. "Yes. I'm an assassin, a hidden branch." Unpredictable nodded. No wonder. Wang Yu suddenly understood. No wonder this guy's ranged attacks were supported by the system, so this guy was originally an archer. In Rebirth, there were all sorts of hidden branches, and it wasn't strange to have a skill similar to stealth. After all, the Grandmaster of Combat's doppelganger still had a few seconds of stealth time, not to mention the archer and thief that originated from the same branch. As he spoke, Unpredictable took out a crossbow from his bag, aimed at the undead witch lord on his right, and shot an arrow. First focus fire on the one with low defense and high attack. This was the basic rule of online games. Although the undead witch lord's 2 million HP was quite scary, in the face of a boss, it was safe to say that this kind of monster either had high attack power or was incomparably disgusting, so it had to be killed first. Unpredictable's arrow hit the undead witch lord's head, and an exclamation mark appeared on top of the undead witch lord's head. Worms in the darkness, in front of the great undead witch lord, you have nowhere to hide. The undead witch lord, who had been aggroed, muttered a line full of arrogance, and floated towards where the four people were. The voodoo profession was actually a warlock of the dark faction. As a standard cloth mage profession, the necromancer was not an agility-type monster. However, as a level 70 boss, Buzzrook's movement speed was still quite fast. Not long after he finished speaking, Buzzrook floated in front of the four people. Buzzrook's body was slender, and because he was an undead, his face was expressionless. His deep eye sockets shone with a strange light, making people feel intimidated. In the game, the undead were creatures that instinctively resisted humans. As intruders, the actions of Wang Yu and the others were already unforgivable, not to mention Unpredictable's provocation. Seeing Wang Yu and the others, Buzzrook did not say a word. He raised the staff in his hand, and a circle of black barrier drilled out from the four people's feet. Not good. It's the dark enchantment. Dodge. Seeing the rising circle, Wang Yu was shocked, and he couldn't help but look at Buzzrook with a serious expression. As a martial arts expert, Wang Yu could be said to be invincible in the game. However, he was quite afraid of the Warlock class, which had a strong control ability, especially the Dark Barrier, which could freeze the target. It could be said to be the nemesis of a class like Wang Yu that was jumping around. However, the crowd control skills in Rebirth had a lot of limitations. For example, a crowd control skill like Dark Barrier, which had amazing crowd control effects, had a huge weakness. Dark Enchantment was the advanced skill of the Warlock's signature control skill, Distortion. Its control range and immobilizing effect were much stronger than Distortion. Therefore, the preparation time was slightly longer than Distortion. If it wasn't for the opponent's heaven-defying prediction ability, it wouldn't be difficult to dodge it. Under normal circumstances, it was only suitable for group battles. Its performance in small-scale PK wasn't outstanding. However, this boss's Dark Barrier did not have any time to prepare. It was an instant cast. It had to be known that Chun Xiang, as a top expert among warlocks, was equipped with equipment that could reduce the preparation time. Even so, he could only reduce the time required for Dark Barrier to less than 1.5 seconds. Even so, Chun Xiang was able to make an existence like Wang Yu feel troubled. It could be seen how powerful the chemical reaction of the crowd control skill and instant cast was. Just thinking about it made Nye Yan's balls ache. The system was indeed shameless when it came to acting shamelessly. In the end, Wang Yu was still very agile. After a moment of surprise, Wang Yu hurriedly flashed backwards and jumped out of the range of the Dark Barrier. As for Secret's trio, they weren't as agile as Wang Yu. With the rise of the Dark Barrier, the three of them were directly frozen in place. At that time, a cloud of green smoke rose from Buzzrook's other hand. Then, with a cold expression on his face, he aimed at the three frozen players. Secret was immediately dumbfounded. He cried out in fear in the channel, "Nyogo, hurry and save me!" Poison in the hands of a player and in the hands of a boss were two completely different concepts. When players played with poison, they would at most reduce their health and defense. However, the damage of a boss poison was not inferior to any attack skill. Moreover, it would also cause a large amount of damage over time. The color of the condensed poison mist became thicker and thicker. Just as Buzzrook was about to throw it out, Wang Yu leapt forward and used his burst fist to appear in front of Buzzrook. Swapping his weapon for a long staff, he took advantage of the momentum and thrust it forward. But, with a dull thud, the long stick struck Buzzrook's stiff wrist. Buzzrook shook his wrist, and the poison in his hand immediately dissipated. As a Dark Gold Elite boss, Buzzrook's AI was clearly not weak. Seeing that Wang Yu had interrupted his skill, Buzzrook's hollow eyes froze for a moment. He immediately determined that the person in front of him was his opponent. Thus, Buzzrook pointed his staff at the trio. The ground beneath their feet loosened, and undead creatures crawled out from beneath their feet, howling as they pounced forward. Seeing such a gloomy scene and being unable to move, even though they knew it was a game, the three of them were still scared out of their wits. Secret's trio and Unfathomable were slightly better off. After all, they were all men, and their mental fortitude was relatively strong. Seeing such a terrifying scene, they only felt their scalps go numb. Hataki Wu 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 Kai, on the other hand, was a girl. She had never experienced such a terrifying scene before. "Save me!" Seeing that the three of them were surrounded, Wang Yu's heart tightened. He turned around to help, but at that moment, Buzzrook extended his staff and placed it in front of Wang Yu. In an extremely hoarse voice he said, "You! My opponent!" Wang Yu was taken aback. This boss has quite a personality. But brother, dungeons are all about teamwork. If you want to solo them, who will come looking for you? TSK. Wang Yu ignored Buzzrook, who was blocking his way. He lowered his head and ducked under the staff, charging towards the three who were being attacked by the undead. The flames in Buzzruk's eyes flared as he waved his hand at Wang Yu. Immediately, several blue flames flew out from Buzzruk's wide sleeves and flew towards Wang Yu's back at an extremely fast speed. Nyogu, be careful of the netherworld ghost fire behind you. When the three of them saw the blue flames on Wang Yu's back, they immediately screamed in fear. Netherworld ghost fire was a warlock's single-target skill. Its attack power wasn't high, but it could burn one's HP and MP. It was even more annoying than poison. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.